Welcome all to this 2D RTS course. In this course, you'll be learning a variety of different topics that include input mapping, grouping, physics, camera 2D manipulation, resources, viewports, and grid placements. We'll be going through each topic in depth and going through the basics of each node that is used in every feature that we go through in this game. At the end of this course, my goal is to give you the knowledge and resources that you need to take this course above and beyond, to either continue working on it or creating your own game. I hope you enjoyed this course, and if you do, go hit that sub button and check out my other videos, and I hope you guys have fun. Bye-bye.
I'm going to create this project. I've already set everything up, made a folder, but this is the settings I'm going to do. So let's create a project. Let me show you real quick what we're going to be doing. It's going to be super easy. Basically, we have an empty scene, and we're just now going to be able to draw a rectangle. So in the future, we'll be able to select things, right? So in an RTS, usually we want to be able to select objects, right? So this is Godot 4, so keep in mind, if you are using Godot 3, some things will be slightly different. I'll try to point them out as I go, but this is Godot 4. It is in beta, so some things might change. One thing, so there's a few things we want to change in our project settings, actually. The first thing, and this is actually important, it's basically changed from import. Instead of, for our texture, if we are now doing 2D things, we now want to change our canvas default texture filter from linear to nearest. So the default is near or linear, but we want nearest. And this will now allow us to, by default, have things pixelated. So let's delete that. Let's create a 2D scene. We're just going to create a world, save it. And then we're going to create a few other things. We're going to create a canvas layer right off the bat. This canvas layer is going to allow us to do certain things. And we're just going to name it UI because in the future we will have UI, right? So let's capitalize it in the scene. Let's go to our world and let's add our UI. And then let's just play so we can select our current world. We have nothing in there, obviously, but let's add some things. So there's two things we're going to add. Let's go through the options. So the first one that's not an option is camera 2D. So I want you to add camera 2D. And the second one that's not really an option, or that is an option, is your actual selection. So I've decided to use a panel. However, there are other things you can use. You can use, realistically, you can use anything with a rectangle. So we'll go into the code, but you can use texture rectangle, panel. You can even use label technically. You can use color rectangle, container. You can actually use anything because let's actually add a panel for now. And let's look at the layout. So all the transform stuff is now in our layout. And I want to point something out. The size used to be called, the property used to be called rect size, rect underscore size. And if you're using Godot 3, this will still be the case. Let me move my camera to the bottom right. And let me just adjust the size of Godot real quick. Oops. There we go. I just want to hide my bar a little bit. All right. Sorry about that. Okay, so now you should be able to see most of the stuff. Oops. Let me move that back, and I'm going to move my camera a little to the left. There. So now you can't see the left side of my screen. But yeah, so the size, in order to change it, we just call size now. And this is actually almost for almost everything, I believe. I haven't gone through all the nodes and looked at it, but I believe all the different transforms on the size, there's no size here, is now, instead of rect size, it'll just be size. And same thing for position, same thing for scaling. I think I actually like this because before you would get errors if you just wrote dot size, which we'll do in a second. So let's add a camera. Let's change this to just camera and add a script to it. And it'll just be camera.g. Let's actually, no, sorry. Let's actually organize this a bit because we're going to have, this is a project, so we're going to add a lot of things. So let's add a folder called UI. Let's put our UI stuff in there. Let's reset that and put our script in. Okay. Camera. And we're going to delete all this. All right. And now we're going to have a few different variables, quite a few actually. So the first one we're going to have is mouse position. I'll call this vector 2. And there you go. And there's now a few different things that Godot 4 does, which is pretty interesting. I'm not going to go through them actually because it's a bit annoying, but yeah. We're going to make another one called global. Then I'm just going to copy paste a few different variables that we're going to need. All right, and then I'll just read them out. So we have start. So this is going to be the start of our dragging. This is going to be the start vector of our dragging. This is going to be the end, and then same thing. And then this is going to tell us if we're actually dragging. And then we're going to have signals. These signals we won't be using in this video, but they will be later on. So you can add the signals for now, or you don't have to. It doesn't really matter. It won't affect our project for this series. All right. Or for this episode, sorry. So the first thing we're going to have is a function called draw area. And this is going to be a function that allows us to actually draw the panel, right? So the first thing we want to do, I'm not actually sure. I need to look into this more, but on ready var is no longer a thing in Godot 4. I'm not sure why. I don't know how to preload a node. I'll look into it. But yeah, if you know, actually, put in the comments down below, because I actually have no clue. It's hard to find because Godot 4 is still new. So for now, we're just going to do get node panel, which we have to actually drag in. And then we're just going to say size equals, and I'm going to copy paste this because it's quite a bit. Vector absolute value of the start dot x minus the end vex dot x, and then the same thing for the y value. So what we're doing is we're going to essentially, let's draw this out. So once I click on one point, I'm going to drag out this way, right, to this point. So let's say this point is 2 and 2, right? And then this point is 0 and 0, right? That means we want our rectangle to now be 2 by 2, right? And how do we do that? We say 2 minus 0, 2, and then 2 minus 0, 2, right? So that's how we draw out our rectangle, essentially. So we have to actually manually draw out our rectangle. And we're getting the absolute value because if by some chance, no, not by some chance, our mouse position is usually in floats. So for example, it would be 1.9 or something. It would be a float, right? It would be 1.0, 1. Whatever. However, we want the absolute value of it. We want it to be positive. We want it to be a whole number. All right, and that's why we're also doing .x and .y, by the way. So now let's get our position. Vector 2. I'll be honest. I think one thing I want them to change is when you press vector 2 or type in vector 2, the semicolons don't pop up, which is kind of annoying, but it's okay. And then we're going to set our position. So our position .x is going to be equal to the minimum of start v. That's what's wrong. And end v dot x. So the same thing for here, .x. All right, and then we're just going to copy paste that. Whoops. And we're going to have our .y instead. So we're also going to set the position of our rectangle. So we have to change the size, but we also want to set the position of our new rectangle that we just drawn, right? And then to do that, we're going to copy paste this. We're going to say our panel dot position equal position. That's it. And then we'll just say the size is going to be times equals to int s. Because what we're going to do is we're going to pass through area s equals true. Because if we later on, what we're going to want to do is see if drawing area is false or true. Because let me go back to our play. So here, when I click, I draw. We can now draw a rectangle, but when I let go, I want to say the draw rectangle is false, right? So I want it to disappear, right? So that's what this line is doing, essentially. All right. Now we're going to go to input. I had a lot of fun doing input because input has changed quite a bit. You used to be able to say event dot index something equals button left, something like this in Godot 3. Godot 4 no longer has that. I have absolutely no idea what they did with it. I'll look into it maybe if we need it. But for now, we can move around this by just going to input map, and we add left click. Let's add that. We'll add an action, which is left click, and then just add that. All right, awesome. And now let's add our function and do input event, and then we say if event is input event, what is it, mouse. I'll just event mouse. There we go. That's it. And then we're just going to update our mouse position. So mouse position equals event dot position, and then say mouse position global position is also equal to get global mouse position. So this is going to just give us two different positions. The reason why we're doing this is because there's different scalings depending on the zoom of camera. The reason why we put this in a canvas layer is now because, let's do a few things actually. Let's change this to 0, 0, and let's make this current. The reason we're doing this is because if later on we're going to add zoom into our camera, and if our camera is zoomed in, the position depending on the zoom changes. However, the global position, because it's in a canvas layer, does not change. It is still global. It is global dependent on the actual world, right? The world positions. So we need these two positions to make sure we're doing things right. All right, next thing I'm going to do is add a process function. You have to actually type it out. I kind of want them to change that back. Process delta, there we go. And then all we're going to do is say if input dot is action just pressed, left click, then we're going to do something. And then we're also going to, let's just pass for now. And then we're also going to check for if we just, let's just released. There we go. So we want to see if we press down and then when we press up, right? So that's how we draw a rectangle. All right, so in our press down, all we have to do is just update a few things, right? So we want to just say start equals mouse position. And then we say start B equals mouse position. Sorry, this one's actually global. And then this one. And then we'll just say is dragging equals true. I didn't say it's equal, I just put a space, I don't know why. All right, and then we're just going to copy paste all this, put it in here, and say, and then we're going to change it to end. Oops, change that to end, and then we'll say is dragging equals false, because we are no longer dragging, right? And then in our action pressed, we're going to have a function called outside of it, we're going to have an if is dragging. What are we going to do? Well, we want to update our rectangle. So we just call the draw area function, right? And then we're going to say end equals, I'll actually just copy paste these two lines right here. So we're just going to update our mouse position on the end and the mouse position. So the reason why we're doing this is because it might error actually, so let's not do that. In our game here, oops. So when I click, I can now draw. However, as I'm moving my mouse, I want to continuously be updating the rectangle, right? I don't want to just click and then end and then draw a rectangle. I want to update that rectangle as I'm dragging, right? So as I'm dragging my mouse, we want to like draw, right? Okay. And next thing I'm going to do is in our left click, when we release, we want to see if our start B dot is, what is it? Distance to, that's the function. I'm not sure if this changed, but from Godot 3 to Godot 4, but in Godot 4 it is distance to. And I'll just say mouse position is greater than 20. And we're going to do all this, but we're also going to do raw area false. And then we're also going to emit signal area selected. Let's actually just copy this so we don't get an error. So this later on, this doesn't do anything right now, but later on, this will allow us to tell us the area that has been selected. Okay, and then we're also going to do an else statement if the distance isn't greater than 20. And then we'll say, we'll just do end equals start is game equals false. And then we're just going to draw area false as well. Okay, let's, I don't know what that means. Let's just play and see what happens. There we go. There's our rectangle. So we can now draw on our screen. Let's just change our panel a little bit. So there's things I want to do. Let's close all this. Let's go to theme override. Give it a flat box. Let's make it black again, or like grayish. And we're going to change the modulate a bit to like half. I'm going to go to border. I'm going to make it 2. Now let's do 3. And color, obviously we want to blend a little bit. Yeah, that's a good color. I think that's fine. And then we can do radius. We can do like, let's do 2. Let's not do it too big, just to smooth it out a little bit. So now when I draw, it looks slightly nicer. So it's not super sharp. It is pretty sharp. And it also has a little border. And eventually, let's just add something in right away. Let me import the things I need. So let's close that. I think it's, no, wrong one. Let me close that now. Let's go here and let's import all the things I need. It went into the wrong folder, so let's re-import that. There you go. So I imported a bunch of things. I'll put these in the description down below. Let's just put something in our world so we have a reference. So as you can see, by the way, it's now pixelated because we changed it in the default settings. So let's play. And now I can select. It looks pretty neat. You can still see the things that are selected, right? So it's not completely modulated. Let's do one more thing. Let's test one more thing. So in our camera, later on, what we'll want to do is zoom, right? So we can do, let's do 3. There we go. So now we are zoomed in. Save, and it should zoom in, but my rectangle still works, right? This is because we are using our mouse position event plus the actual global position, okay? So later on, we'll add, I think next episode we'll add zoom, and then we'll also, I'm not sure if we'll add characters yet, but we'll see. So I'll have to do all this beforehand. But anyways, thanks for watching, guys. I hope you enjoyed this series, episode. This episode was a bit different. Usually I do a bit more theoretical things, kind of. In this episode, it was a bit more drawing and technical things. I hope you kind of learned a few things on how to draw. I think most of the drawing comes from the actual function here, draw area. So as long as you understand this, I think you're fine. The rest of it is mostly just setting all the positions and playing around with it. Most of this comes from testing. So I would test like, okay, print the mouse position, print this, print that, and I just kind of play around with it and everything. But this, as long as you understand what's happening here, then you're fine. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys learned something. Again, subscribe, like, comment, share, etc. Again, I also have a Patreon. You can consider pledging to my Patreon if you want. However, you don't have to. I will continue posting videos for free, of course. I will say, what was I saying? They do help me make more videos. And I will say also for this series, I will be uploading a bit less frequently because it's going to take me a bit more time to do each episode. But I hope you guys are going to enjoy this series. I think it'll be fun. I don't think there's anything else like this on YouTube, which will be cool to see. So I'm excited to make a full RPG series with you, or not RPG, RTS series. Yeah, so yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be a part 2 of our RTS series. So let's get right into it. Let me just show you guys what we're going to be doing. So here I have a bunch of units. And now in my area, I can now select them. And I can unselect them and select them. So this is quite cool. There is no movement yet, but we are going to be working on the actual selection. So the first thing we're going to do is we're actually going to make this local And we're going to change the structure of a few things. We're going to add the cat into the world. There's going to be a reason we're going to do this. It has to do with the positioning of the actual select that we're using. So we're going to have to put it back into the world, actually. And then let's go to, and then let's just edit that. So I've actually figured out the onReady variable, which it's kind of silly, but now you want to have an at. So at onReady, we'll say variable box equals get node, and then we can just drag the panel in, and now we can use that box down here. So let's just Control R, replace it all, and that is it. And let's just test real quick, and now we should be able to select things. Okay, let's go to our panel and actually just make the default size 0, so that way we don't see anything. All right, now let's make our unit, and to do that, we're just going to search up body, and they've actually taken out kinematic body and renamed it to character body. So we're going to use character body. We're going to add a collision shape, and then really easily, we're just going to add a character. You can add whatever you want. I'm going to actually add environment sign soldier. We'll use the same one that I used before, which is going to be champions. And I used Arth. Let's see what this one is. Okay, let's not use that one. Let's use this one. We got this guy, and the animation should be 5 and 8. All right, so let's move this guy up a little bit. Let's give it a shape. Boom. And then let's just shape it real quick. None of this really matters yet because we're not going to be actually moving it, but yeah, let's just do that. We're going to create a folder for it, call it unit, and then let's close all the art. We don't need that anymore. I'm going to rename this to unit for now. Let's add a script. We will not have it be on build-in script. Something interesting I found out is they now have basic movement, which is pretty neat, actually. They have no default and object empty. So we're just going to do this, and I'm actually not sure what this is. Let's see. Okay, yeah, this is the empty one. So we're just going to delete all this, and then let me see what variables are we going to need. Ooh, very easy. The first one is going to be export selected. Let's have selected equals false by default. And we're also going to have an onReady variable called box. And this is going to be get node box, but we don't have a box, so we're going to have to make one. So let's add a panel. There we go. Let's move this up a little bit. We're going to go to theme override panel. I'm going to create a style flat box. We'll go here and we'll make it completely invisible. We'll go to border width. We'll do, I think I did 2. Let me double check. Yeah, I did 2. So we'll do 2. Whoops, not skew, sorry. Border width 2, 2, 2, 2. And then we go to border. We're going to color it with blue. We'll blend it, and then we'll just make it a lot smaller. Cover the unit, so that way it looks like we've selected it. Awesome. And now we'll just rename this to box. We'll go here and we'll say get box. What is this? Unexpected identifier, blah blah blah. Let me just copy paste this, see what happens. Okay. What was it before? I don't know what happened here. Why is that error? Extends character body 2D. I think it's because it's a class body. I'm not sure. Let's just copy paste this. Get the actual box. And then we're going to have a ready function. Function ready. Then we're going to have another function called set selected. We're going to pass through a variable, which is going to just be value. And then we're also going to have another function. We're not going to type this one. We're actually going to connect it. Actually, I don't think we need this one for this episode. Yeah, we don't. Okay, so we're just going to do this. And all we're going to do is we're going to say box dot visible equals value. And that should unerror. Oh, we have ready, that's why it's erroring. What we'll do is we'll just have this. So selected, I've selected. So what this is doing is we're going to pass through a true or false, and we're just going to get our box and say if it's visible or not. Later on, we'll add a few things, obviously. So we'll add like, what do you call it? We will add like health or a name, for example. We can have a name and we'll show the name if something is selected. But for now, we'll just have this box to show that we actually have something selected. All right, let's put in our unit into our world. We'll just drag it in. We're actually I'm gonna add a node because the sort is gone. I'm just gonna add a regular node, the unit in there, and I'm gonna rename this to units. And then in our unit, this is going to be the fun part. We're going to go into a node. I've never done this before, but I got a request in my Discord server to teach how to do groups. And I never used groups before, but I actually thought about something like this for RTS. I think groups would actually be very useful. So I've never thought about how useful groups can be. I don't really like that actually, but in this case, I think it'll actually be pretty useful. In most cases, I will say honestly, I think you can manage without them. However, in this case, it'll be pretty useful. So for now, we'll just have unit. We'll add it, and then we will add our unit to that group. So now anything that is on this path that is called a unit will now be added to this group. So if I duplicate this, it is now part of that group, right? So let's do that. And I wonder if, I think you have to manually add it, yeah. But you can duplicate it, so that works. And then, oh, interesting. I've just noticed, I want to show this actually. This isn't part of what we're doing, but we'll connect it anyways. Let's go to our node or unit and connect this. We're not going to do anything in it. That didn't connect, that's weird. Connect it. And we have the signal here. And in our world, they changed it so that we have the signal and the box. That's pretty cool. So now it shows that it's part of a group and there's a signal connected. We're not going to do anything with that, but it's pretty interesting that they did that in Godot 4. So real quick, if you do not know where Godot 4 is or how to download it, I put it in the description below. You just need to check if you're on Mac, Windows, I think there's Linux as well, and then just download the file that they have on their website. So, okay, let's keep going. So in our camera, if you remember, we created the signal area selected, and we have the emit signal. Okay, so emit signal has actually changed quite a bit in Godot 4, which was a little annoying to research, but I'll explain it as we go along. So we're going to create a ready function to connect our signal. So let me check in our camera. So there's a lot of different ways to connect actually. So if you click connect and then you just control left click, it'll pop this up and you can open online docs, whatever. You can read through it, but there's a lot of different ways to connect a signal now. I'm not sure if this was actually always there, but yeah, it's there now. So I'm not sure. Anyways, so to connect, what we're going to do is we want to connect the actual signal name or the function of the signal. And then we're going to pass through something called callable. I don't know if this is new, but that's how I figured it out. And then in this guy, we're going to pass through two things. The node we want to connect the signal to, and then the signal that we're calling. So if you don't know what signal is, I'll explain it in a second. So for example, we'll have self and then area selected, but we're going to do on area selected. So we're going to, essentially what we're going to do is we're going to connect. Okay, let me explain what a signal is. So a signal is essentially a node, it's a node that is basically talking to another node, or it can talk to itself. So for example, when we connect a node or a signal from here, it usually talks to any nodes that are kind of local, right? Or it can connect to a node that is outside of that area. So for example, in this case, we're connecting this function to ourself every time I call this signal, right? So here we emit this signal, and then we're going to call this function. So let's create this function down here. Just say function, on area selected, and we're going to call through object because we're calling ourselves down here or up here, right? So we emit signal area selected with self, right? What's going on here? And then we'll just, let me see. Yeah, we'll just print for now. We'll say ASD. Let's play. Now, whenever I do something or I use my camera, it's going to call that function, right? Okay, so let's change this up a bit. We want to call a function in our world. So let's add a node to our world. We'll just have world, yeah, that's fine. We're going to change all this, or we're going to remove it all, have our function called area selected. And our goal is to go from camera to world, right? So we could just go here and connect it. However, we want to pass through an object, right? So instead of self, we'll just do get parent. And then that is it. Let's just ignore that. That's fine. We'll delete that. And now let's play again, and this should do the same thing. Let's actually, yeah. So every time I select, it's calling into our world script and calling this function. Okay, we're almost done. Let's now add the things we need. So there's two things we need in our world. The first one is just going to be the units, which is going to be an array. Let me double check. Yeah, and then we're going to make it equal, and then we're going to, ooh, that's not part of it. Okay. Yeah, that's it. Okay. And then let's go to our ready function. So we have to make a ready function. And then we're just going to say units equals get tree dot get nodes in group. There it is. And then we're just going to get units. So this is where the group functionality comes into play. This is a nice feature that Godot has. So we are going to go into our groups. We're going to call anything that has this word unit, okay, the string unit, and we're going to put it into this units array, right? So now we have, whenever we load our game, we're going to have this array of units full of our existing units that actually exist, right? And then let's add another function. This function is going to be get units in area, and then we're going to pass through an area. And then let's just pass for now. And then in our area selected, what we're going to do is we're going to get all the position of the actual box. So as you might remember, in our camera, we're drawing out a box with all these variables, right? So whenever I start, right, I click, I go drag, and then I let go, it draws a box, right? And we want that box in here as well. So we want to pass through that into our area selected function. So I'm just going to, yeah, let's type it out. So first we're going to have the start. We're going to have the end, and we're going to have the area. And then area is going to be an array. The end is going to be the object dot end. And then the start is just going to be the object dot start, right? So we're going into our object. So because we're passing through the object, which is the camera, right? So this camera is being passed through our signal. And this camera has the variables start and etc., right? So we can call any of these from our signal, right? And then in this area, we're just going to add things into it. And what things are we going to add? Well, we want to add the area that we've drawn out, right? So what we do is say area append. And this is just going to essentially add to our array. Append vector. I'm going to copy paste these two lines. It's basically just math. I'll explain it real quick. It's the exact same logic as this guy, almost. So we have the size here, and it's being called, or we're kind of drawing it out one more time here. So we have the min of the x and the min of the y. And the same thing for the max of the x and the max of the y, right? And then we're also going to have another variable called ut, and we're going to call our get units thingy and pass through an area. So the area is going to be the array that we pass through. All right, and then what are we going to do in here? Well, we actually want to get the units that we've selected, right? So we're going to create another array called u. And this is going to hold anything that is inside of our area. So if there's any units inside of the area that we've drawn, we're going to add it to this array, right? So all we have to do is say for units in units and say if unit.position.x is greater than area 0.y. We'll actually put this in a curly bracket. And let's copy this. Copy all of it. Okay, so let's actually explain this real quick. So we want to find the position, the dot position x of our unit. So okay, let's kind of we can't. Let's pass for now. That's not going to work, is it? Yeah. Oh, units, not unit. Or wait, no. Right. Okay, unit in units, and then this is going to be for unit. There we go. Okay, let's play one more time. Okay, so what we're doing is when I draw my rectangle, there is an x-axis on the top and then an x-axis on the bottom, correct? Now, the first thing we're going to do, there's two things we want to do. The first part is to see if the x-axis, the x position of our unit is inside of those two positions of our rectangle, right? So if I were to just draw straight down, I want to check if that unit is inside that area, essentially, right? And then we're going to do the same thing for the y, right? So that's what this is doing, and then that's what this is doing, right? So we want to, this essentially allows us to check if it's inside, right? Now, we're actually just going to copy paste this. This one is actually going to be smaller than, and then this one is just going to check the y position. So now we want to see if the y position is inside of the box as well. Let me double check. So this is, this is x. And then this is x. And also the area is going to be 1. Okay, so what am I saying? That is it, I think. So we check the x-axis. So we see if the x-axis and the x position of the unit is inside of the area.x, and then of the starting position. And then we're also going to see if the x position of the unit is inside of the x position of the end position, right? And then we're going to do the same thing for y. So this allows us to essentially draw the box and check if that unit is inside of it, if that makes sense. So, and now what are we going to do if it isn't in our, what are we going to do if this unit is inside of the box? Well, I want you to guess. Look at this logic. So here we have an array, and this is how we add something to it, right? So I want you to think of how are we going to add to it. We have to append. So to append, we do the same thing. So we say a unit append, and then we're going to just add that unit. And now we're going to return u, because we want to get u down here in a second. So if you don't understand what's happening, I'll re-explain one more time. In this get unit area, we're going to make an array that's empty. We're going to for loop through our units, right? So the total amount of units that we have, we're going to for loop through it. And we're going to get the first unit, for example, and we're going to see if that position is inside of the rectangle. And if it is, we're just going to add to it. We're going to add u to that, what am I saying? That unit to the array u, right? And then we're going to return u because we want to use u down here. So we're going to for loop u in units. Let's pass this for now, actually. And then we're going to for u in ut. And then all we're going to do is say u dot set selected, not u dot selected. Is that right? Let's see. Yeah. Okay, so set selected, if you don't remember, we wrote a little while ago, it's in here, it's set selected. And all we're going to do is we're going to get this selected. And then if it's false, for example, we're just going to set it to the opposite of what it is, right? And so now if I play, if I hover it, ooh, nothing happens. Why is that? did I do wrong? Let's try printing something. Let's see if something happens. Let's go here. Oh. What is happening? Okay, something is happening. So I did something wrong. Let's make sure that our unit is being added first. So let's go here. Print our units. Click on current scope. Units. That's why. Replay. Okay, nothing has been added. Why is that? Units. That's why. Okay. Yeah, I'll just. You know what? No. I'm gonna rename this. Can I rename it? Yeah. Manage group. Go here. Here. Units. Okay, there we go. Close that. Units. And then let's play. What happened? Invalidate the index on base character something. What have I done? Let me. Ooh. I think. Here, let me copy paste this. This will be really silly if this is why, but okay. Wait, I'm wondering. Yeah, okay. This is smaller than, and then this is greater than. Now let's play one more time. Okay, it's still gonna error. I think the problem is the curly bracket or the brackets. I'm not sure why, but yeah. Okay, anyways, it works. We can now select our area. However, we can't deselect it. So here we can select it, and it keeps printing every time I selected it, right? However, why can't I deselect it? Well, and this is an easy fix. Essentially, all I'm gonna do is deselect anything when I actually try to select something. So first, we'll deselect everything. We'll deselect all the units, and then here we'll just copy paste this, and then we'll select the ones that are actually in it. So what we can do is deselect all of them, and then we can select the ones that are actually inside our box. So we have to reload the game. So now if I select out here, nothing happens. If I select him, and I select outside again, it deselected him, and then it selected whatever was in that box. But there's nothing in that box. So let's actually test it. Let's duplicate a few units. Let's replay. And let's select all of them. Let's only select 2. Let's select 4, etc. So now I can deselect anything and select whatever I want. And yeah, that's it. So we created a selection RTS game, which is pretty cool. This took quite a while to do. So if you guys appreciate what I've done, go subscribe. If you don't want to pay anything, that's totally okay. I would mostly just appreciate a comment down below if you like and share the video. Those totally help me a lot. It helps me grow. I'm trying to reach. I'll be honest. I'm mostly trying to just get monetized, which will take a while. I don't have a set subscriber count goal for that. I suppose maybe 5K would be cool, but I'm kind of just rambling on at this point. What else? You can also consider subbing to my or pledging to my Patreon. I might try to set up a Ko-fi as well, just in case people don't want to subscribe for several months, which is fine. But again, if you don't want to, that's totally okay. I will keep pumping out videos regardless, but it does definitely help, and it allows me to commit more time to YouTube and less time to a part-time job per se. What else? I will say also in the next few weeks, I might be uploading a bit less regularly. I have midterms coming up at school, so I'm a bit busy. But other than that, I will probably see you guys next time. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something about groups. We did a few new things in groups. There's a lot of new stuff to learn in Godot 4. I think this will be a fun series, but it will also be very difficult. So the episodes will probably come out slow. I'm also getting a bit busy, so it'll come out even slower because of that. But I hope you guys enjoy this series. I hope you learned something, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Welcome back, everyone. This is going to be part 3 of our RTS series. So let's jump right in. I'm going to just show you guys what we're going to be doing. So here we have a tree with a progress bar. We can now select our characters and go into it. And once our characters go into it, the timer starts, and this also depends on how many characters I have. So it'll go faster or slower depending on how many units are in there. So let me try one more time. Oh, wrong game. So if I only put one of them, it'll go a lot slower. So if I go in, it'll progress slightly slower. Whereas if I put 5, it'll go a lot faster. So let's get right into it. The first thing we're going to do is we have to actually make sure our units can move. So we have to do that. We're going to be doing this using click. So we're going to be doing our right click. So the first thing we have to do is actually add that. So we're going to go to input map, add right click, which I guess I already did. So make sure you have left click and right click, and that is it. So after that, we're going to add 3 variables. First one is going to be on ready. Oh, that has to be at on ready var target equal position. So we're going to get our own position. And we're going to have a variable called follow cursor equals false by default. We're also going to have our speed, which is going to be 50 for now. And then down here, we're going to have 2 functions that are just going to be pretty simple. The first one is going to be our input. It's like that, input event. And then we're just going to check if event is action press. There we go. Right click. We want to check for our right click, so that's how we do it. And then we'll just say follow cursor equals 0. So our goal for this is if our right click goes down, then we're going to make it true. And then what we're going to do is we're going to copy this and say if released, then we're going to make it false. So that's how we make the follow cursor false. So this gives us 2 things to be able to do. One, let me actually just play. So when I move my characters, I can click 1 time and they will go to that cursor. But I can also keep clicking and they will keep following my cursor no matter like what I do, as long as I keep clicking down. So that's what that's going to allow us to do. All right, so when follow cursor is true, what do we want to do? Well, we have to make a process function to be able to actually do something. So it's going to be a process delta function. Nope, I lied. We're going to make a physics process function because it's movement. And then we're going to check for follow cursor. So if follow cursor equals true. I think one thing that's kind of cool is Godot has added or changed the equal stuff. So if you actually do not equal, that changes to like not equal, which is actually really cool. And then you also have like bigger than or equal to, et cetera, et cetera. So that's actually really cool. I really like that Godot has done that. Makes the math look a bit easier. So, all right, next thing I want to do is we're also going to check if the character is selected, right? So each unit has its own selected box, right? So if it is selected, then then we'll actually move. So if selected, then we're going to do something. So what are we going to do? We're going to say target equals get global mouse position. And then outside this, we're going to say velocity equals position but direction to target times speed. One thing to note is that we used to have to define velocity before, but now with the new Godot 4, velocity is already built into the body, whatever you call it, kinematic body. So, okay, and then we'll say if position dot distance to target is, where is it? Greater than 15. I'll explain what this does in a second. I'll explain it by showing it. I think it'll be a little easier. We'll move and slide. Else, then we'll pass one. Okay. Should error. Okay, so the distance to, the reason why we have this, okay, let's actually add the animation before I explain it because it'll make more sense with the animation. So we're gonna quickly just add a simple animation. We'll have walk down. And we're just going to add walk down for now because I think that's the first one. So we'll just key it. No reset curve. Zoom in. Boom, boom, boom. 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 So it'll look like that. Okay. guess. Okay, and then we'll loop it, and then we'll do 0.6, and then walk down. So now what we can do is we can actually make another onReady variable that will be called animation, and then we're going to get our animation player. So now we can just do down here next to our target. Whenever we set our target, we'll just say anim.play walk down. Let me just double check that's right. Yeah. And then we'll also stop our animation. So we'll go stop right there once we are done. So the reason why I wanted to do this to make sense is because essentially once our position is close to, or like the distance to the target is more than 15 pixels, meaning we're close. Or if it's not equal to 15 distance, meaning we're like about 15 pixels away from our mouse, then we're going to stop the animation. The reason we're doing this is because if you don't, it'll keep playing the walk animation and it will never stop. So let's play and see what we get. So we select it and we can't move. Why is that? Weird. Let me see what I did wrong. Oh, I know. I forgot to do this last time. So the set selected, we have to also set the selected to true, but not true, but to value. So we want to also set the value. So let's add that. And now we should be able to move. There we go. So now our animation's playing and we're walking around and it follows the cursor. And when I click, it stops about 15 pixels away. The reason I'm doing this is because when I add more pixels, yeah, let me one more thing. Sorry, my brain is really scattered today, but another thing, this was from the comments down below. I also realized this from last video. With the groups, instead of doing it in the local scene in the world, what you should have done, and I should have done, is done it here in the actual unit itself. So go to manage units and do it here. So you can go to I've already added it, but you should have the body kinematic. You add it and add the units group. And then, because that way the group it's local to the unit itself. So now when I add a unit, it's automatically there. So I'll put it back in the node. There it is. And so now even if I duplicate it, whatever, it doesn't really matter. It'll still be in that group. The reason why this is actually better, there's two reasons. One, we can just add in a unit without having to duplicate. Two, later on, because we're making an RTS, we're going to want some sort of way to make units, right? So we're going to like get wood, gold, etc., whatever, and then we're going to want to be able to spawn characters. And if our character spawns without being in a group, that's going to be a problem. So we want to make sure we can spawn it being in a group, right? All right. I've also disconnected the signal. That's why it might look different if that's what you're wondering. But now let's double test that our movement works. So I can now select a bunch of stuff. And then I can only select those three. And yeah, so now our movement works relatively well. You're more than welcome to play around with the distance. You can change it to like 20 or 25 because as you can see, it's a bit weird in the sense that they will keep playing or moving until they get to that position, right? But it's okay. It's kind of a bug, but we'll leave it because it doesn't really matter. But yeah, let's move on. All right, next thing we're going to do is I thought a lot about the trees, and I don't think we're going to do tiles for it. The reason being because we want each tree to do certain things. And I think doing a tile map with the trees, it is possible because you can check for a certain tile on the map and then do something with that certain tile. So if it's a tree tile, do something, but it becomes very complicated and there's no reason to do that. You can just have the tree be a separate node in general. So let's just make a body. This will be a static body. We're going to name it tree. We're going to save it. We're going to create a folder for it. Call it world objects. There we go. And I'm going to save that tree here. I'm going to capitalize it though. Tree. And there it is. There's a tree. We want to add a script to it. And then let's go back here. And we're going to add a few things. I think one thing to note is that tween is now gone. I did not realize this. You can still use tween, but you have to do it through code now. So I'll be honest, I kind of don't like that. There was a reason why I don't like it because I'm not going to go explain too much into it, but basically we couldn't access the tween outside of a certain function. But yeah, I don't like that they removed it too much, but it's okay. So let's add a collision shape. Let's add a area 2D, and then let's drag that out, duplicate the collision, add that, and then give both of them an object. So we're going to give this one a circle, and then this one a rectangle. And then let's move the circle outside. If I search up tree, we should get a few trees. I'm going to use this one, so it looks pretty nice. I'm going to drag it to the top. I'm going to make the collision box fit. So that's going to be our collision box for our tree. This is going to be our area 2D to check for any units. And then in our unit, our area 2D, we'll just rename it to chop area. And then we'll just connect this to body entered. And we'll also do body exited. Oop, it didn't connect. Let's do it one more time. There we go. And then we're also going to add two more things. We're going to add a timer. Then we're also going to add a progress bar. You can add a texture progress bar if you have a texture for it, but we don't. So we're gonna uncheck the percent. We don't want to see it. We're gonna go to theme override styles. We're gonna give a flat box for both, and then I'm just gonna fill it out with a random color that I like for both of them. This one will be like, let's make it greenish. Now let's just do it. Where is it? Value. Let's change that to 50 so we can see half. And then you can kind of just make it fit the tree. So that's going to be your progress bar for the tree. Okay, let's move that right up above. Let's move the timer below. Okay, let's just do that. Sorry. And then in our script, no, one more thing we're going to connect. We're going to connect our timer. So our timeout is going to be connected to our script. We also keep in mind. Okay, so I've decided to make the timer 1. I've decided to do it a certain way for a certain reason. I'll explain it in a second, but what you could do, so we have two options. One, we can make the timer 1 second, and as if our unit is next to the tree, we will keep chopping it down over that duration. If it leaves, then we pause the timer, right? And then you keep going if the unit comes back. That's one way. Another way is to make the timer 1 second or less than a second if you want. And if there is a tree or a unit inside that tree area, then we'll start the timer and keep playing it as long as there is a unit inside of that area. However, if there are no the units inside that area, we stop the timer. And I'm going to do it that way. So you can do either way. In fact, I would suggest maybe you try it the other way and see if that works. But for now, we're going to do it my way, essentially. So there's a few values we're going to use, or variables. So let's create them. We're going to need variable current value. We're also going to need, do I even use that actually? Let me check. Oh, I do not. Never mind. We're not going to, that was a little while ago. We're going to have total time, which we'll set to 5. And then we'll have variable current time. We're not going to set that. And then we're going to have variable units. This is going to check for how many units we have. And we're going to have 2 unready variables, which are just going to be the things that we created. So we have variable timer, and then we're also going to have variable bar. So we're going to load those 2. So we have the progress bar, and we also have the timer we added. All right, so now we have our timer and our bar. Next thing we're going to do is in our ready function, we're going to want to set the timer or the bar to the max time, right? Not the timer max wait time, but the actual total time, right? So the total time is 5. So we're going to set max value equals to total time. We're also going to say current time equals total time. Because if you want, you can export the total time and change it, and it won't affect the current time. So you only have to change this thing in one spot. So if you want 15, you only have to change it here versus having like 15 here, and et cetera, right? So this is just make our life a little bit easier. All right, and then in our process function, we're going to say if current time is smaller than 0, smaller than or equal to 0, then what we'll do is we're going to call a function called chop. No, pre-chopped, meaning our tree has been completely chopped. We're done. So let's make that function. we'll pass for now. So this is we're gonna do something at the end once we've actually chopped our tree. All right, so how do we actually get our tree to chop? Well, the first thing we have to do is in our body entered, we have to check if a unit is entering. There's a few different ways to do this. One way to do this is checking the group. You could also check with the name. You can do so many different ways to check this. I'm going to do it with the name. So I'm going to say if unit in body.name, then what we'll do is say units plus equals 1. And then we will start chopping. I'll do it like this, start chopping. So that's going to also be a function that we're going to need. So let's copy this over and then paste this function. So we need a function called start chopping, and then tree has been chopped. And then in this function, all we're going to do is say timer.start. I think that is it, right? Yeah, timer.start. We're just going to start the timer. And then once our timer is started, what are we going to do? Well, every time 1 second has passed, we're going to basically just take our current time minus equals 1 times units. So the reason I'm doing this is because the more units there are in that area, the faster it'll go. You could make this you could adjust this to whatever you want. So you can say divided by 2. It might be a bit weird because you're not working. You would probably have to round it. But for now, I'm just going to do times units because it's going to be a whole number. And then this is the fun part. We're going to create a tween to basically animate the progress bar. So I think this can actually work without the tween. So let's actually try it without the tween. For now, though, let's Q3 once our tree has been chopped. We also want to see. I think this should actually work now. So first of all, let's add our tree. Let's add a node for the world objects. So objects, then we'll add our tree in there. There we go. There's our tree. Let's reload. Okay, let's do 1 for now. So let's go in there. Okay, and it doesn't seem to work. Let's check unit. All right, so now let's debug. Let's see if this is even working. So if it is working, we'll print something. So let's go again. There we go. I think it might not be working. Oh, it is working, but we're not updating the progress bar. Okay, so you could update the progress bar in the process function. So what we can do is say bar.value equals current time, right? Yeah. Another thing I want to do is go back to unit. I'm actually going to change this to 15 again. No, I'm going to change it to 10. Okay, and then go back to tree. Let's play. Let's see what happens now. So now when I go into it, it'll start clicking, right? Now let's try it. Let's try with 2 units this time. Let's see what happens. It should go a little faster. Yeah, there it is. It's going by 2 basically, right? What we can do, another thing I'm going to do actually, is I'm going to scale this by 2. It's just really small. I want to make the area 2D a bit bigger. There we go. Okay, now this does work, but it seems very choppy, right? So instead, we're going to create a tween. And if you don't know what tween is, tween allows us to smoothly animate things generally. That's what tweens are used for. So to do that, what we're going to do is create a tween. So by saying variable tween equals get tree dot create tween, not timer. And then we're going to call our tween and say, what is it? They have changed it. It used to be interpolate property, but now it's tween property. And the values are a bit different. So yeah, it took me a while to actually get this, but the way they tween is a bit different now. So let me just write it out and then I'll explain what each one does. Current time and then 0.5 and set. We'll explain this for now. Okay, so tween property is the same thing as I don't remember what it used to be, but basically we're going to animate something, right? So we're going to take our bar, we're going to take the value. So that's what we're going to animate essentially. So those 2 things are the things we're going to animate. Now this is asking us, okay, what are we going to animate to? So we want to animate it to the current time, right? Because we've set the current time. So for example, let's look at our progress bar. So when we set up our progress bar, it should be 5 out of 5 technically, right? Because our total time is 5. So first it will be 5. The value is 5. And then the current time will be 4. So we're telling the tween, okay, I want you to animate from 5 to 4, okay? And I want you to take 0.5 seconds doing this, right? Because we want it to be relatively quick. We don't want it to take a second to do this. And then we're going to set the trans to there's a bunch of different options, but I find either quad or linear probably the best ones for this. You can play around with them. I don't know if bounce is new, but I've never seen it before, and it looked really funny. So let's see what this looks like. First thing we have to do, I already did. Okay, let's see what it looks like. So now it kind of animates it, right? Boop, boop. And then once it's 0, it's gone. Okay, one more thing. Let's test it to see if it works with 2. Yeah, it works with 2. Awesome. So now what I have to do is see what happens when we exit the tree. Well, the first thing we want to do is check if it's a unit, right? So let's copy that. Let's take that out. We don't need to print anything. And then we'll say unit minus equals 1. And then we're going to check for if units is smaller than or equal to 0. And if it is, what we'll do is say timer.stop. So, hold on. So the reason why we don't have to stop it if we are exiting in general is because, okay, if there's 2 units in our tree, so we have 2 units, 2 guys in our tree right here, let's see, 2 fingers, I still want to continue chopping down the tree, even if one leaves. Sorry about that. If one leaves. So now 1 unit is in the tree, right? So I want to keep chopping. And the reason this will work is because we're only multiplying the 1 times unit down here in the timer timeout. So this is the reason I did it this way. Because now we can make it so that we chop at a certain speed, essentially. So this can be our speed. You could actually, here, make it more obvious. We'll say chop speed equals 1 times units. And then down here, please. We'll say current time minus equal chop speed, right? So you can adjust the chop speed formula to whatever you want, but essentially this is telling us the more units we have around the tree, the faster it'll go. So later on, we can make it so that there's certain units that are good at chopping trees versus units that aren't, whatever, right? So we can kind of complicate it a bit. Okay, one last thing we're going to do is I'm going to create a new folder called global. And then go to global. I'm going to create a new script, call it game. And this is going to be our singleton. So let's auto load it. So here, global game add. So this is now our singleton. It is a global script that we can basically access anywhere. And let's create a variable called wood. Yeah, let's capitalize it and say it's equal to, I can't type, equals 0. There we go. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually go into my UI. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to go into my UI. I'm going to add it. But in our UI, I'm going to delete the camera because we no longer need that. In our panel, I'm going to take the layout, reset that so it's invisible. I'm going to go to the UI and I'm going to add a label. And I'm going to add a script for the UI. And then in our process function, I'm just going to do, let's auto load our label. So let's say variable on ready variable label equals label. There we go. So now we're just going to get our label dot text and set it to wood. And say wood is equal to string game dot wood, and this should give us 0, right? Because wood is set to 0. So now let's adjust this in our wood. So let's go to our tree, where's our tree, and say when our tree is chopped, well, we're just going to add to our wood. So we're going to say game dot wood plus equals 1. And you can add how many ever you want. If you want to make it random, you can. I'm just going to add one for now. Okay. Now what we can do is go into our tree and see what happens. Let's actually add more. So it drops down faster, and there we go. Our wood is now equal to 1. Awesome. And that's it. So I hope you guys have learned something. Let's make this current again. I'm not sure why it did that actually, but it makes the camera uncurrent. So there we go. But yeah, so now we can chop our tree and add wood to our game. So we have a pretty cool game. It's pretty neat. There is a different way to make sure that our player is not animating as long, like aside from this. I'll do it next time. So we'll do that next time. We'll actually add a lot more animations into our player because there are actually quite a bit of animations in this guy. So let's check it out real quick before we end the video. Let's go to characters, champions. This guy kind of looks like he's chopping a tree, which is actually why I chose this one. I'm not sure if any of the other ones look like it. Yeah, no, they kind of all look like warriors. So yeah, we'll have this guy actually animate as if he's chopping the tree. We'll also change the interface slightly, so that way it'll tell us if we're going to chop the tree down. Okay, I didn't mean to do that, but yeah. So we're gonna add more complexity to this, but for now, this is pretty good. We have a tree chopping system, which is pretty neat. Yeah, that's it. So I hope you guys learned something. I hope you guys now know how to use tween with Godot 4. It's not too complicated. It's similar, but it's not the exact same. So it's tween property. I know there's also tween dot interpolate value. Yeah, it used to be interpolate property, but now it's interpolate value, and there's tween property. That's the one that we want. Anyways, yeah, no, I hope you learned something about tween. I hope you learned about timers. I hope you learned why I decided to do the timer this way and not have a timer of 10 seconds, for example, and say, okay, we're just going to pause, start, etc. Yeah, no, I hope you guys learned something, etc. I'm just repeating myself. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you learned something. If you did, consider subscribing. I would appreciate it a lot. Leave a comment down below if you learned something. If you didn't, let me know anyways. Let me know if you guys have any requests. If you want any specific requests, you can join my Discord and ask me directly. I'm pretty active on Discord usually, so I can answer any questions if you need help. I would like to build a community on my Discord. That would be awesome. I would love to see people helping each other in our Discord. I want to see you guys help each other as well. So I think that would be really cool. Yeah, I'm not really sure where this channel will go. It's growing, but it's not too big yet. So I would like to see. I think learning starts with you. So if you want to learn how to do game dev, try to join a community. There are so many different communities out there that you can join, and they can help you. I'll promote my own. Obviously, it's not very big. There's like a handful of people who are in it. But I'm in there. If you need my help, I'm always there. Anyways, thanks for listening to my rant. That's it. Again, subscribe, comment, share, like, and consider pledging to my Patreon as well, I guess. And yeah, I will see you guys next time. Bye. In today's video, we are going to be working on the camera, which will be fun. I'm just going to quickly show you guys what we're going to be doing. So the first thing, you can't see it, but I'm going to be moving the camera right, left, down. And to do that, I'm using the arrows on my keyboard. And we will also be able to zoom down and up using our scroll wheel. So you can see my little mouse here. If I scroll, oops, mouse back in the game. If I scroll up or down, it zooms in or out of our game. So we can now have not complete camera control. It's not perfect, but it does work to an extent. So let's close this, and this is our game. So if we go into our camera script, this is what we should have so far. And the first thing we're going to do is we're going to add a few variables. So let's make a comment here. We'll say camera control. And we're going to add a few variables. We're not going to use all of them all at once, but I'm just going to add them and we'll use them as we go along. So we'll have all of them be export. Let's do variable speed and this will be equal to, what do I have? I have 20.0, and then I'm just going to copy this a few times. I think we have 5 variables. So we'll have speed, we'll have zoom speed, we'll also have zoom margin, and then we'll also have zoom min, and zoom max. So you can kind of assume what each one does by the guessing by the name. So we have zoom speed. The speed is the non-zoom speed is going to be the speed that our camera moves around. So that one's the only non-self-explanatory one, I guess. So margin, we'll have that one be 2.5, and this one will be 3.0. And you can play around with these numbers later on, but these are just the numbers that I'm going to be using. All right, so the first thing we're going to do is in our process function, let's do the moving with our mouse, or sorry, moving with our key inputs. The first thing we'll do actually before that, this is unrelated, or actually it is related. So we're going to need the scroll wheel. So we'll have add new action. We'll have wheel up, and then we'll have wheel down. And then we'll go, I'll say wheel up, and then wheel down, and then close that. And now in our process function, so the movement is going to be very similar as if a player was moving. So if you know how to move a player, I want you to try to pause and think about how are we going to move the camera as if it were a player. So to move the camera as if it were a player, we're going to bring in 2 variables. So the first variable is going to be input x and input y. There we go, input y. And this one is just going to be int input dot is action pressed UI UI right minus we need on there minus int of input is action pressed UI left. There we go. So if you don't know what this does, I would probably suggest going to some of my other videos and checking out how movement of player works, and try to figure that out first, because it's basically using math. So we're going to take our right and left and get a strength from it. And then for this one, it's going to be UI down. And this is going to be UI up. Yeah, there we go, up. And then using those inputs, what we're going to do is basically take our position, so position.x, and we will make it equal to lerp position.x position.y, .x plus the input x times speed, and then times delta, I think. No, times zoom.x. This will be kind of more important later on, but because the zoom isn't changing yet, but this will be important once we start changing it. And then we're going to have speed times delta. There we go. That should be it. Okay, let's copy this. I'm not going to read it right at all. I'm just going to copy and change the y values. That should be input y. All right, and now if we play, hopefully it should work. Yeah, it works. Pretty awkwardly, but yes, it does work. Awesome. Now, yeah, that's it. So it does kind of work, but it is a bit awkward. So let me check what's going on. Let me check. I think it's because our camera is limited actually, 0, 0. So that might be why it's a bit weird. And then the zoom is 3, so it's pretty zoomed in. So let's reset it. There we go. Okay, so it does work kind of. Awesome. We just can't go up or down unless we're already like, yeah. Okay. So that's the position and the position X and position Y. Next, we're going to, let me double check I'm doing this right. Let me just copy this in. We didn't mess anything up. Input times speed times zoom. Yeah, that should be right. Let me copy the other one. Oops, it's not right. There we go. Position X, position Y. Okay, next thing, we're going to have zoom in and zoom out. So in here, in our process function, we're going to say zoom.x is equal to lerp zoom x with zoom dot x times zoom factor. Is it? Yeah, just zoom factor with zoom speed. I just realized we're going to need this here as well. So zoom factor, we'll put that right above the position. I just realized I missed three other variables. So we have zoom position, zooming, and zoom factor. Sorry about that. I missed those completely. All right, so now we have the zoom factor times zoom x. Then we'll have the zoom speed. I don't know why, but that z looks really strange to me. Next up, we will do zoom times delta. Not delta all caps, but delta like that. And then we'll just copy paste this for the y, and then zoom y. Next up, I'm gonna copy this because it's pretty short, but we're just going to clamp our zoom x and zoom y as well. So we're gonna clamp the zoom x, zoom.x with the zoom min and the zoom max, and that's it. And then I think that is it for, oh no, sorry, there's one more. If not zooming, yeah, we're going to set our zoom factor to 1.0. That's it. That's just to double check that it's at 1. Next thing we're going to do is go down to our inputs where our process function is fine. This is going to allow us to zoom in and out, but now we actually need to give a way to actually zoom, right? So we're going to have to do this in our input event. So the first thing we'll check for is if the absolute value of our zoom, this was outside of it. There we go. Absolute value of zoom position dot x is, or not is, but the minus the get global mouse position. There we go. Dot x is bigger than the zoom margin. Then we'll take our zoom factor and set it to 1. And then similarly, we're going to do that for the y. So let's just replace this with y. Zoom margin. We can keep, this one has to be y. All right. Next up, we're going to actually make sure we're checking for the input. So this is where we actually add the wheel down and wheel up. So first, we'll do something similar to this. We'll just say if event is in input event mouse button, no, motion. Yes, button. Haha. I have to check my reference because wheel down and wheel up is a button, not a motion. Motion is when the mouse is actually moving. So, so now we'll say if event is rest and zooming equals true, or not if zooming is true. Now we'll actually set zooming to true because this now means that we're zooming in or out one direction. And so now we want to check which way are we actually going. So we're going to check for the event.isAction wheel down. Yeah, the wheel down for this one. Just double check it's the same as my reference. And then we'll say the zoom factor is going to be minus equals 0.01 times zoom speed. There we go. And then we'll say our zoom position is going to be equal to get global mouse position. And then similarly, we will copy this over and do this for the wheel up. We'll have wheel up. However, the zoom factor is now going to be plus equals. So we're zooming upwards, or inwards, sorry, not outwards. And then once we let go, so this is going to be allowing us to zoom. But once I'm done zooming, or once I've finished zooming or let go of the mouse, I want to be able to like say zooming is false. So it's really easy. We'll just say zooming equals false here. So this is going to allow us to check if we're no longer pressing, then we just say zooming is false, right? Let me just double check my reference. I think that is it. Dun, dun, dun. Yeah, I think that's it. So now we should just be able to test it. And if I zoom in, zoom out, it works perfectly. And I can move around. The only thing I would say is if you want to move the camera using the middle click, which some RTS do, that is different. It's going to work a lot differently. You can kind of figure that out on your own, and I would encourage that. My brain is pretty blank today, but I'm trying to, I really wanted to push out this video anyways. I wanted to try to get this zoom in and zoom out feature to you guys. I took a little break, as you might have been able to tell. I took like almost 2 weeks actually off, mainly because of midterms, and my brain completely pooped out because of that. But yeah, it's been really hard to push myself to record a video. Sitting down and talking to you guys it's been kind of a change for me, so it's hard to get used to. But I'll try to do my best doing that. Yeah. If you have any requests, let me know down below. Again, join my Discord. I would very much encourage it. It helps me a lot to see you guys join my Discord and engage with me and engage with the small community I have. I don't know, subscribe, comment, share, and I will hopefully see you guys soon. I'm going to try to, if you haven't seen already, my last video was about 5 different ways to move a sprite. This was a continuation of a question I posted on my community. I also posted it in my Discord. So the idea of that series, I'm going to call it a series, is to get you thinking like a game dev or thinking like a programmer, because it's very hard to go from simple day thinking to, okay, how do I have this problem? How can I solve it? And not just how can I solve it in one way, but how can I find 5 different ways to solve this problem? And some of these things that you might think of might be the worst idea you've ever thought of. In fact, the first 2 examples I give in the last video are terrible, right? You don't want to do them, right? But I do it because the idea of this series is to get you thinking in that way, right? Because I think that will help you to learn. That's my perspective, at least. I hope that would help you to learn. I'm not sure if it will, but hopefully it does. But yeah, this video was a bit slow in explaining. I didn't really explain too much, but hopefully you got it. It was pretty simple. We're kind of just playing around with the zoom, built-in zoom function and built-in positions. Godot has all this stuff pretty much done for us, right? Because they have zoom and they have position already, so we don't really have to do much. We just have to take the input and actually do something to it, right? So the only other thing that we changed is the zoom position as well, right? So the position, which is quite unique, we don't want it to just zoom directly in front. We want it to zoom wherever our camera is, right? Or wherever our mouse is, sorry. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and I will see you guys next time. All right, welcome back, everyone. I'm pretty excited for today's episode. We are going to be doing some spawning. So let me just show you what we're going to be doing real quick. So I've made a house. We have the, would you like to spawn? We say yes, and something spawns, and it spawns randomly around our house. And then we can select them and move them. And then when I click no, it unselects the house and deletes the spawn thing. Awesome. So let's get started. The first thing I'm going to do right away is I did this. I never did this, but we're going to add a background by adding a texture rectangle. And then in here, we're just going to find our grass. We're going to use grass 1, and we're going to use stretch mode tile. If your grass has tile set or an actual tile on it, this is what you would want to do. So let's just expand this a bit as big as you want. And then let's put it in the back and lock it. And now we have a nice grass background. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to, I figured out why sort. This took me a bit of tinkering, but basically we want to make sure that the world, the actual scene like here, is ordered in Y sort enabled. And then we also want to go here, go to ordered, here, go to ordering. And now we should be able to sort it properly. So yeah, now it's sorted properly. So now it's in front or behind. So if I can actually test it here as well. So here it's behind the tree and here it's in front of the tree. Awesome. And this will help us with our house as well. So let's create our house. Let's go here and we are going to create a static body. And this is going to be our house because it's static, it doesn't move. We're going to create a collision shape for it. I'm going to zoom in. Let me check what else I need. And that is it. However, we do need house. Actually, I'm going to do barrack. And you can do whatever you want. I'm going to do the wooden one. I'm actually going to double this, make it 2 times bigger than it actually is. And then the animation is going to be 4 by 5. There we go. And now we have a house. We just need to give it a collision shape. So a new rectangle. There we go. And then we'll save it and we will put it, let's create a file for this. We'll say houses. We'll save it as barb house. So barbarian house. I'll name it barb house. There we go. And then let's just give it a script. And we're not going to do anything here yet. Let's actually close all these scripts that we have. Let's go back to our world and let's set that up. So we want a node 2D to hold all the houses. So let's name that houses. Let's go to ordering and make sure we enable Y sort. And now we can just add our house. So let's do that. Let's find it. It should be in houses. Here it is. So now if I just add it, it'll be in our house and the Y sort should work properly. So if it's in front, it'll be in front. And if it's behind it, it'll appear behind it. So that's awesome. Okay, next thing, what do we want to do? Let's move the trees to the side a bit. Let's see. We want to, next thing we're going to do is go to our house. We want to, I'm not sure what happened to merge. Merge is no longer a thing, but the way I did this was I got the node unit and then I just make local and then I take the box. This is what I wanted, this unit box here. And I'm going to move this in front. I'm going to move it to the front here and the layout transform. I don't think, oh, there we go. Yeah, we'll do 32 by actually, and we'll do 34 by 34. Just so it kind of looks like it's outside of it. Okay, there we go. So that way we have our selected. I'm actually going to change this to selected. And then I'm going to go into my script and there's a few things we're going to have. So let's delete the ready function. We don't need that. And we're going to create 3 variables. One is going to be mouse entered. So this is pretty self-explanatory. It's going to tell us if the mouse has entered the house. And then we're going to have an onReady variable called select. And this is just our get node selected. And then we're also going to have a variable called, what is it? Selected. Selected equals false. And we'll implement that later. So that's just going to tell us if our house is selected or not, right? Next thing we're going to do is we're actually going to change something in grouping. This took me a bit of tinkering to figure out, but basically what we want to do, there's 2 things that we have to change. So the first thing is we no longer want this group here. We want, like, hold on. We want to add it in our ready function. So we're going to actually delete this and we're going to go to our ready function and add to group units, and we're going to pass through true. I forgot what this does, but you can look it up. I remember looking it up, but I forgot. And that is it. So now, if I delete all of these guys, or let's actually not delete them, let's just leave one to make sure this still works. So now if I select it, it still works properly. So it's not added in the group technically, but we add it in the group once we do the ready function. Now, here's the second thing we need to change. Because we are trying to add units, no, you know what? Ignore what I just said. We'll keep going, and then I'll try to let you figure out the bug. There's a reason why there's a big bug that will kind of hit soon. So let's get ready, or let's get right into this. Okay. The first thing we want to do is create a menu of sorts to actually have our unit spawn, right? So we're going to have this spawn unit be global in a sense. So we want to be able to have one menu for all the units that we want to spawn in the future. So right now we're spawning a barbarian, but we want to be able to call or pass through a few things and just edit this one scene. So that way we have one scene for different spawning units or whatever, right? So it's hard to explain, but we'll just get right to it. So you'll see what I mean in a second. So we'll name the spawn unit. We'll save it. We can put it in global. And then in here, we're just going to add a panel. We're going to add a label. We're going to add 2 buttons. And then we're just going to duplicate that. This will be yes. This will be no. And then let's turn on grid snap and just move everything. So this will be here in the middle. Let's go to our label, or our button, I guess. This will be our yes label, so we'll say yes. And then our no label would be over here, so we'll take that, make it a little bigger. Let's actually make it the same size as that. Say no. We'll go to our label and say, would you like to spawn this unit? And then we will simply put a picture of our unit. So we're just going to put a sprite. We're going to go to our actual sprite unit values. We're going to go to champion and put this guy in. Animation should be 5 and 8, I think. And 8, there we go. And then we're just going to triple this. We're going to make it 3 times bigger. Actually, let's do 4, because why not? All right, there we go. So this is our menu. Oh, I guess we can delete that. And then in here, we're going to have a script. We're going to put it in the global. That's fine, not built in. We always want to be able to refer to it. And let's now, what am I doing? Node signals pressed. There we go. Let's connect our yes and no signal. So here we go. We have yes and no. For now, no, what we'll do is we'll just queue free. We're not going to do anything else. And then for yes, what we'll do is, let me just double check something. Okay, so now what we want to do is actually preload our unit. So here we'll say on ready variable unit equals preload. And we can find our unit. It's not in here. I'm just going to find it here and drag it in. Unit. There we go. So we preloaded our unit that we actually want to spawn. So now what we want to do is actually spawn that unit when we say yes, right? So when we say yes, what are we going to do? We are going to, we're going to actually initialize it. So variable unit1, just so it's not the same name, we'll say unit dot instantiate, I don't know. And then we'll just say add child unit 1. This is how we add a child. However, we don't want to add the child here. We want to add the child into the units section, right? So to get that, there's a few different ways we can do that. The way I did it is I'm going to just copy this world units path. Here we go. So we're going to get tree, get root, and then get node world units. You can also find it by doing get node, whatever works. This is just, I don't know, a little easier to find it. So now we have the unit path, and so we can say unit path dot add child. However, we also want to change the position of our unit. So we're going to say unit1 dot position equals vector 2, and we'll say 200, 200 for now. Okay. Now our spawn unit should work, but we don't have anything in there yet. So let's go to our global function game, and we're going to add a function in here that allows us to actually add that spawn unit, right? So we're going to have to preload it. Say on ready variable spawn equals preload spawn unit. Awesome, showed up right there. Do that, and then we'll add a function called spawn unit, and then we will just say variable spawn unit equals spawn dot instantiate. Yeah, instantiate it. Nice. I'm very good at English. English is in fact my first language, so I should be able to say it. All right, so spawn unit dot add child spawn unit. Now the question is, where do we want to add this guy? Because right now we're in the global. This is a global node, so we don't want to add this child in a global node. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the same trick. We're going to get our path to our UI. So we're going to say variable path is equal to get tree, get node, get tree, get root, get node, world.ui. So if you're wondering how I got that, it's right here. So world/UI. So now we have our UI node, and now we can go to our game and say path.addChild. So that's where we want to add it. So now there is absolutely no way we can call this function. So let's actually call this in a ready function somewhere. Let's just add it right here. Oops. So now, game.spawn unit. So now when I play, this should pop up. I say yes, and it'll find. No, sorry, it's just a fixed point. So now it just spawns it. Yeah, so it spawned our unit, so it works. You can keep saying yes. If we go to our remote world unit, it spawned a bunch of them. They're all in the same position, so it doesn't seem like we've added a bunch, but it does work. And we can say no, and it just queues free. Okay, so we pretty much have spawned a unit. Awesome, let's keep going. There's a few things left. Okay, there's a bug. We cannot select the unit. As you might have noticed, if I say yes, and I zoom in, I cannot select him. I can select this one, but not this one. How come? I want you to pause and think, why can't I select it? Like, actually think about this, because this actually took me a few minutes to figure it out. I was like kind of frustrated. I thought the problem was with groups, but it is not. The groups is working, but it's related to groups. I'll give you that. That's my hint. There's a problem related to the groups. Okay, hopefully you've unpaused and thought about it and you figured it out. The problem is because we set the units array here to get nodes in group only when we have the ready function. And this is a problem because we've added more units to our group, but we haven't added them here. So what we can do, there's a few different solutions to this. You can add them to the units as well in the array when you add the unit, or what I did is, I feel like it's a bit easier, honestly. We're just going to add a function called, let's delete this, we don't need that anymore. We'll say function get units function, and then we'll take this guy, and then we're going to erase our current array, and then we're going to make it equal to this. I don't actually think you need to do that, but I don't know. I'm going to do that anyways. And then in our ready function, we can just call the get units function instead. And now what we can do is in our spawn unit, whenever I add, here, wait, let me double check where I did this actually. Yes, I did it here. Okay. So now we also want our world path. So the same thing, we're just going to get world path equal to node, get node world instead of units. The reason we're doing this is because now we can access this script right here, right? So now we can go into our units and say world path dot unit get units. There we go. And make sure you do this after you add it. If you do it before you add the child, it's not going to add you. As you're adding this child, it's after you added the child, it added it to the group. And getting units before you've added anything to the group does not do anything. So make sure the order of this is proper. So if I did this here, it wouldn't work. Okay. Next thing we're going to do, I think that is technically it. Now let's randomize this. So we want the position to be around the house that we selected. So there's a way we can do this. First of all, let's create a new variable called house position. And this will just be equal to vector 300, 300. That'll be our default, just in case there's nothing. And then we'll say house position plus vector 2, random position x, and then we'll say random position y. Except this isn't dot, this is comma. Okay. Now we actually need to get the random position x and random position y. So how do we do this? Well, luckily Godot has a built-in randomizing function. So I'm just going to copy it over right now. So first we have RNG equals random generator.new. You can do this outside the yes function actually, but I'm going to put it inside. We're going to randomize it, and then we're going to, let me just copy this over. We're going to actually get our random position x and random position y. And the random range is going to be between -50 and 50. And yeah, so this should work. However, no, this should work. Let's just try it. So we have to actually call the thing. So spawn unit. So yes, and it'll randomly put it around the point 300, 300, right? However, this is not around our house. So how do we get it to our house? There's a few different ways we can do this. The way I do this, it's pretty simple actually. Instead of, here, let me find it. Where is it? Okay. So now let's actually finish our barb house. So how do we get to this and go to our barb house? So luckily, our barb house has a function called mouse entered. This is perfect because this is what we want. And then we'll say mouse entered and mouse exited. And then if in our input function, which we do not have, so we'll say input, if event.is action pressed left click, if mouse entered equals true, then we will spawn it. Now we just want to say mouse entered is false if I exit the house, and then mouse entered equals true if I enter it. And that is it. That should work. The only other thing is we now want to say selected equals not selected. So we're going to make our selected equal to not selected. If we're going to, yeah, so this just sets it to the opposite. So if it was true, it's going to be false. If it was false, it's going to be true. However, we don't want to spawn a unit every time it's selected. So we're going to check if selected is equal to true. There we go. So if it's true, then we'll spawn it. Okay. And then just to make sure, we'll say selected, select dot visible equals selected. So if selected is true, we want our select to be visible, to be true, sorry. So by default, this should be false. In fact, actually, I don't have to change that. It can be visible because it starts as false, so it should be false by automatically. And now it's false. If I click it, nothing happens because in our selected, I always forget this, but a panel always stops our mouse. So always keep that in mind. What does that mean? It means in our mouse function, if you go to our selected panel, go to mouse, filter, stop. It means it's stopping anything from going into this thing. So we're going to say pass or ignore. I think pass is better. And let's play. So now if I click, nothing happens. Why is that? What is going on? Oh, I remember. We need to go to input and say it's pickable. Sorry. Last thing. Now it should work. Okay. Now if I unselect it, it makes a billion of these, but that's okay. We're not going to worry about that right now. So if I click no a bunch of times, it keys free all of them. Awesome. So we have a somewhat working system.
But we want to be able to pass through our position of our house. So how can we do that? Well, we can just say position and pass through the position. Position. So let's pass through our position. And then in our spawn unit function, we have to actually be able to say that. So let's pass through position and say, let me double check my reference. Yeah, okay. So now what we can say is spawn unit dot, no, sorry. Yeah, spawn unit, it's not a function, dot house position equals position, or position, here we go. So we're going to get this, where is it? We're going to go into this guy, say house position, right? From our global function, here we go, this guy is going to be equal to the position that we pass through, right? And so now, when I spawn it, it'll take that position and add a random variable. So now, if I go here, I select it and I say yes, it'll pop it around our house. Awesome, and we can select them and it works pretty much properly. Now, this is a little addition. How do I make it so that when I click no, it unselects our house, right? Because it's still selected. And if I unselect it, it doesn't pop it up, right? So it's kind of weird. So the way we can do this is actually quite easy. Let's see. We want to get our house path, and what we're going to get, let me actually just copy this so it's a little faster. House path equals get tree, get node, root, get world, houses. So we're getting the thing with our houses, right? So we're going to get all the houses basically. And then we're going to say for loop I in range, no, not range, in house path dot get child count. And then we're going to say if house path dot get child I dot selected is equal to true, then we're just going to say, copy this over because I don't want to retype it. We're going to say it's equal to false. So if it's equal to true, so what we're doing is we're going to basically loop through all the houses that we have and find the one that is selected. If it is selected, then we're going to make it to false. And that's it. So we don't really have to do anything else, right? We just have to double check that this is spelled correctly. So we'll select it here and select it here, and it is spelled correctly. Awesome. So now if I go here, I say no, it unselects it, right? So if I had another house, so let's duplicate this, put that there, let's play. If I had it here, this one is selected. If I say no, it'll unselect it, and not this one, right? Because this one's not even selected anyways. So that can work properly. That's how we can have several houses. This isn't perfect, obviously. There's still a lot to do. Obviously, one of the bugs that you might have noticed already is we can keep clicking it and keep spawning a bunch of things. This is actually let's actually fix that right now. How we can do that is go to barb house. We can go to here. We can do that in our global, which is awesome. Let's say if path dot get, let's for loop in get path dot get child count. If path dot get child I dot name is equal. Do we want to say name? No, we'll say as. I wonder if this works actually. Let's see if this works. Has node. What does has node pass through actually? I don't remember. Has node path. Let's try this. Let's see something. Let's maybe check something. So here, let's go to world. I have to actually create it. So go here, UI. Here we go. We have the spawn unit. And basically, I want to check if this already exists. So we're going to for loop through our path. So get child count. We for loop through it, and we're going to say if. Yeah, we're just going to say name. So if path dot get child I dot name is equal to, no, not equal to. Okay, sorry, I forgot how to do this.
here we go, in, so spawn unit. If it's in it, then we'll say pass okay. So what we'll do is we'll say has spawn equals false. So by default, hopefully it doesn't have it. If it does, we'll find it and say it's equal to true. There we go. And then after, we'll say if equals true. No, sorry. If it's false still, then we'll add it. Okay, so what have we done? So we've gone through our path. So our path here is our path UI, right? So we're gonna go through all the children that exist here. So right now there's 3. So it'll for loop 3 times. And then we're gonna see if our spawn unit is in that name, is in any of those names. So is it in here? No. Is it in here? No. Is it in here? Yes. If it is, we'll say has spawn equals true. If has spawn is false, then we'll add it. If it's true, then nothing happens. And yeah, that's it. You know what? Let's not instantiate it unless it's true. So let's add this here as well. So yeah, there we go. Now we should not get any errors. So now if I go here, it still works. If I click again, nothing should happen. It should only pop up once. I click yes, and that's it. Awesome. It now works. That's it. Okay, this was a long video. It was almost 30 minutes, but that's it. We have a pretty cool working system. Next video, I might add a counter to how many units we want to add. That would be kind of cool. Actually, it might not be next video, but eventually we might get to that. We'll implement a few other things. We might do a resource house as well. So we have a house that spawns units, but how do we get resources, right? We can get it by trees, obviously, or maybe we want like a coin system. So we can actually add another currency, which will be coins. So right now we have wood, right? But maybe we want coins, right? So we'll have a house that generates coins for us automatically, and we'll have like a nice timer that kind of goes with that. It'll be like a tween timer probably. So we'll see. But yeah, so that's it for today. I hope you guys learned something, as today's video is pretty long. My throat is dying now. I'm really tired. But yeah, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed. I hope you learned something. This series is getting kind of difficult. I'm not sure how much longer it's going to be. But if you guys want to support me, I have a Patreon. I also have a Discord. I would love you guys to join. If you don't want a Patreon, that's totally fine. But totally join my Discord. It definitely helps to see how many of you guys are engaging with me. Always leave a comment down below, share, like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye-bye. Welcome back, everyone, to another episode of our RTS series. In today's episode, we are going to be doing 2 main things. We are going to be making a new house, which is going to be for resources. So let's close all this. We don't need any of it. Let's create a new resource here. And let me just pull out my reference. There we go. And we're just going to create a static body and add everything we need. So we should have a collision shape. We're going to need a sprite, which we'll actually drag in a second. We're going to add a timer. We're going to add a progress bar. And then we're also going to add the sprite. So that's the sprite that we need. Let's find it. Let me find what it's called. It is called resource, I think. Resource. Here we go. Resources. And we're just, because it's animated or it's a sprite sheet, we can just go to animation, say 3, and then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 5 for the V frame. And then for the frame, you can choose whatever you want. I'm going to do the same one I did in my reference. I'm going to do 11. So it's a little mine thing. And then for the progress bar, let's drag that up a little bit and let's take show percentage off. And actually, here's what we're going to do. I'm going to erase that. I'm going to go to instantiate child scene. I'm going to add our tree. I'm going to make it local. I'm going to drag in the progress bar. And that's it. I'm going to delete the tree. So now I have the same progress bar. It looks relatively nice. And I'm going to expand it just a bit so it's a little bigger. And I'm going to save this guy. So this is going to be our coin house. And I'm going to save this in our houses.
save, close all this. We don't need it. Awesome. Let's rename this to coin house. Let's add a script for it. Let's go to our collision and add that so we don't have an error. And let's just do this. And then for our coin house, just so we keep everything consistent, we'll go to ordering and turn on Y sort. Awesome. And I think that is it for the setup. The timer, we're actually going to change the timer to 0.1 seconds. And then we're going to connect the timeout. And I think that should actually be it. Okay, awesome. Let's set up everything we need in our script. We're going to need a few variables. We're going to have two onReady variables. So the first one is going to be, or both of these are just going to be our bar and our timer. So let's have bar equals progress bar, and then variable timer equals timer. There we go. We're going to need a few more variables, one of which will be the total time, which I'll have as 50. This is actually 5 seconds, which I'll explain in a second, but we'll have 50 in the current time. I'm not going to explain too much because this is the same concept as, oh, sorry, we actually need both those functions, so let's leave them. This is the same concept as the tree. So the tree function, or the tree in general, if you remember this, it's pretty much the same. But we're going to do it anyways. We're going to do it together. I'm not going to explain too much, but I'll explain it as we go along. So let's see. The first thing we want to do is in our timer timeout is we're going to say current time minus equals 1. And then we're going to say var queen equals get tree dot create tween. In fact, actually what we can do is go over here and we can just copy this actually. Let's go to our coin house, copy this, and is everything the same? I'm going to keep this as 0.1. The trans will leave the same, and that is it. Okay, let's also create a new function called coins collected. There we go. And then we'll just do game.coin plus equals 10. And as you might already know, in our game, we don't have any coin variable, so we're going to have to make that, and then we'll set it to 0. Let's capitalize it, because why not? And we'll say coin over here. Awesome. And then I'll ignore that for now, actually. And yeah, that's it for now, actually. Okay. And then in our process function, what we want to do is say if current time is greater than 10, no, sorry, smaller than or equal to 0, then we'll just call coins collected. And then in our ready function, we want to make sure we set our bar properly. So we're going to say bar max value is equal to total time, right? Yeah. And then we're also going to say current time equals total time. So that way we only have to change the current time or total time in one spot. And then we're going to say timer starts. We can put timer on auto start, but just in case like something goes wrong and it doesn't auto start, we'll just call start here. And that is it. So let's go into our world and let's add our coin house. Let's put this in our houses. We have a coin house. Let's actually go here and transform it, make it 2 times bigger than it should be. And actually, let's actually put this in the objects because the houses are different. Okay, but now it should work properly, so it goes down relatively smoothly, and every time it does not reset. So how do we reset it? I want you to think, how can we reset the timer and the progress bar to go back to full? Well, there's a few different ways we do this, but think about like what we have already. And we can actually just call the ready function. Instead of like reloading this entire thing or destroying it and then creating a new one, whatever, we could just call the ready function. And this just allows us to reset the entire thing, right? So now, zoom in a little bit. It'll reset every time, right? Because we call ready. Okay, let me actually show you guys what I have. So it's very similar. So we have our resource thing. However, there's a little difference. There's a plus 5 10G there. I'll kind of fix that later, but we want that little animation of the text, right? So how can we do that? Well, it's actually very simple. I did something similar to this in one of my RPGs, and we're going to do this here as well. So this is actually very simple. We're going to have a label node. We're going to save this as POP, as in pop, and we'll put this in our global function. And we're going to rename this to POP, script, POP, save it, awesome. And then let me just get my reference out. We're going to have 3 variables. We're going to delete all this. And a variable travel. You know what, actually, because I've already done this, I'm just going to copy paste it and explain it as we go along instead. Because if you want the full explanation, you can refer to my RPG series. I'm pretty sure it's in the Zelda one. Yeah, it's in the Zelda one, in the Zelda RPG series. There's an episode where I explain most of it. I'll still explain it a little bit because this is Godot 4 and a bit has changed. So let's do that. So show value. We're going to have a function called show value with the 2 things called value and crit. Crit is a true or false thing. Value is the actual number. And then because we no longer have a tween, we have to create a tween here. So we can just say create tween. We can do get tree, create tween, or just create tween. It doesn't matter. And then we're also going to have our text, and text is going to be equal to this. So we're going to have plus the string value of our value, and then plus G as in gold, right? And then for our pivot offset, we'll just do size divided by 4. Okay. For movement, okay, so this is what I used to have. So I'm going to still use the same function. This function originally was used for an on hit in the RPG series. So when you hit something, we want something to pop out. However, when we wanted it to pop out, we don't want it to pop out always same direction. So we had this movement function where we would set the travel.rotated at a random float of negative spread and positive spread divided by 2. But in this case, we'll set it to random I. This is actually not going to create a randomized thing at all. This is actually going to just have it in one direction straight up. But I keep it here just in case, because if I ever want to actually randomize it, you can just say random F, meaning random float, and that'll actually make it random. And we can test that in a second. So let's keep going. So now we're going to animate the position of the label. So to animate the position of the label, we're going to use tween property instead of tween position, tween value. Sorry. So tween property is the same thing as what they used to have. I forget what it was, but tween property is the same. You just have slightly different things. So we have the self, the actual object. We're going to tween our self. We're going to tween the position. And this is the original position. So if I wanted, so I'll show you in a second. But this is the original position, and then this is the final position, essentially, right? So we're going to go from here to here, right? So position plus movement, and we're going to take duration, so which is 1 second. If you want to change duration, you can have that here, like have another thing, duration, but we're not going to do that. We're just going to have it fixed at 1 second. Okay, now to animate the fade out, which is pretty much the same thing, or using the same concept, we're just going to tween the modulate instead, right? So we want to go to modulate, which is 1, 1, technically. So if we go to theme override, we can go to, am I wrong? No, visibility, sorry. Go to modulate, you see A is at 1, right? So technically, or it's at like 250 or 1. But if I slowly start to, I got some text in, let's put 1, 2, 3. Let's put this up here. Let's try to center it. Let's actually do this, center. Okay, there we go. And if I go to modulate and I slowly start to bring it down, it disappears, right? So usually it's completely solid, opaque, but we're gonna slowly get it to disappear. And let's, no, not auto wrap, just off center. Okay. So that's the modulate, the fade out. If crit is true, I'll put this in anyways, just in case you guys want it. But this is, again, this is for on hit usually. So I would have a crit thing, but in this case, we're not going to have a crit. It's just always going to be one value, but it's there anyways. And because the tweens have changed, we used to yield and then Q free, but this is, this is something I'll explain. Godot 4 is pretty useful. It has a tween callback now. So we can say tween.tween callback. We're going to say self.queueFree. I think I can actually just do this. I'm not sure. I'm just going to say self.queueFree anyways. You'd think it would be like this, but it's a callback. So we're just going to call the function like that. And yeah, that's it. So we're going to play the tweens and we're going to call them back. So, or on callback, we're going to free this entire object. So after the fade out, essentially, we're going to queue free this entire object because we no longer need it, right? Okay, so now back in our call coin house, we're going to create another variable called POP. We're going to preload it. What is this? Let me actually just copy it. Okay, there we go. And then in our coins collected, we want to show that. So how do we do that? Well, we have to create the object. So we're going to say variable POP equals POP. Let me capitalize. Oh, it is capitalized. Okay, awesome. Instantiate, and then we'll say POP. No, add child POP. And we can just add it to this guy, to this coin house for now. It's okay. And then we can say, after we've added it, we say pop.show value. We're going to call the function that we created, right? We're going to pass through this string 10. And then we're going to say false because crit is false, right? And then we can play. And now every time it pops up or finishes, it should say 10 plus 10 gold. This is a bit awkward in the sense of like if I zoom in, it's a bit different. You can kind of edit it and play around with it however you want. But for now, this is fine. I like it like this. Yeah, I'm not going to care too much about how it looks. You can edit it for your own game if you want. But yeah, this is how we create a resource system, and it gives us a little effect. If you want to do like a sprite instead of G, you can do that as well by adding it here in this script. Yeah, I'll let you figure that out. But yeah, that's it. Yeah, that's I keep stuttering, but that's it for today's video. Nothing too complicated. It's stuff that we've already done before. Hopefully you could already do something like this. I was actually contemplating whether or not I should even do this, mainly because we've already created a house and I've already created the concept of the tree, which is very similar. So, but it's a slightly different thing. So, and also tweening is a bit complicated in the sense of it's a bit different than it was in Godot 3. So I kind of wanted to show it twice. So in this series, we've shown quite a bit of tweening, which is awesome. But yeah, we have resources. We have two different resources. We have a spawning thing. I'm not sure what we're going to do next, actually. We might... I'll look for attacking. We might start doing some attacking. So right now, our units don't do anything other than like farming on the thing. I might work on getting them to attack a AI, for example, or a little bot thing, which will be cool. So I might do that. I'm not too sure what else we'll do. Oh, mini map. I might actually do a mini map for next episode instead. So yeah, I might do that instead actually. But yeah, okay. I'm gonna do that instead. Next video we'll do minimap, which will be fun because I've been getting a lot of requests for minimap, and it's pretty easy actually. So I'll do that. I'll do a short video on minimap, and then we'll also do attacking and stuff like that. So that'll be fun. Yeah, if you guys enjoy this video, like and subscribe. I will see you guys next time. All right, welcome back, everyone. In today's episode, as you can see on the top left of our screen, we are going to be making a minimap, and it's a bit hard to see, but it is accurate. So you can see our units. If I zoom out a little bit, our camera zooms out, we can move around. And if I go chop a tree down, and it's a little hard to see, but if I click, it updates. So our trees kind of get chopped down in our minimap as well. So it's constantly, I'll show you how to update it. So you can kind of choose when you want to update it. But yeah, we have I decided not to put this guy in, but you can do that on your own. We can add units as well. So the more units I add, you can see on the top left, we have a bunch of units now, and I can move them all around, and they follow us pretty accurately. Okay, let's get right into it. So this is our old game. This is our game without the minimap. So let's create our minimap first. Yeah, there's no setup needed, so we're just going to create our minimap. We're going to use it. We're going to put it into a control. We're going to say minimap, and we'll actually create a. Oh no, I'll put it in the UI. Perfect. I'm going to set that to 0, and then in our control, I'm going to add a panel as the background for our minimap. So let's set the transformation to 150 and 150. And then for the override, I'm going to override it and style it out a little bit. What I'll do is let's make the background like blue, maybe dark blue. How can I get dark blue? Yeah, we'll do that. There we go, dark blue. And then for the border width, we'll do 7 for all sides. We will blend it, and I think that's it. Let's actually do a corner radius of 1, 1, 1. If you want your own, actually, let's do 3. Can barely see it. Okay, there we go. If you want your own background panel, you can make your own, whatever. But this is just to make it not look weird. And yeah, we'll just say this is EG. We'll lock that in. We don't need to do anything. And then for our actual minimap, luckily Godot has a built-in thing to do this for us. Essentially, what we want to do is take a camera, look at our entire screen, and just minimize it into the corner, right? So luckily, yeah, Godot has that for us. We're going to have a viewport. We're going to search up viewport, and we'll have viewport container and viewport sub viewport. So we'll put this guy in, and then we'll also have the sub viewport. Awesome. And I'm just going to copy over the stats that I use for the transformation. So the size will be 280 by 280, and then position will be 12, 12. The scaling will be 0.5. So the scaling is how big the map will be. So this is up to you how big you want to make it. Yeah, it's up to you really. And then for our sub, and then inside of our sub viewport, we're going to start importing things from our main scene. So let's instantiate our world. Let's make it local. Let's bring this guy in. We need camera. We need units. Without the unit, we need, I think that's it. Yeah, that's it. We're going to get rid of the script because we don't actually need that. And then for our rectangle, I think I doubled it. Yeah, I did. So in here, we're going to transform, and we're going to scale it by 2. And then in here, let me see what I did in here. In here, it's going to be, the size is going to be 280 by 280. And don't worry about what it looks like right now. We'll change it in a second. Okay, handle input locally. We're going to take that off. And that is it. So now if I play it, it'll show us our green thingy. And you can kind of move it around so that, you have it wherever you want. But this is just what I'm going to use. It doesn't look perfect, but it's okay. Okay, let's create our script, which is going to do all the things for us. And yeah, let's actually start getting ready for our stuff that we're going to put in here. So there's a few different ways we can do this. Realistically, okay, let's actually put this into our UI first. So let's go into here and bring in our mini map, pop that in, and we'll just set the transform to 0, 0, so that way it's centered properly. Right, and if I play, here's our mini map. Ooh, I forgot that the UI stuff is there. Let's move that. Let's move that to top left or top right, I guess. Yeah, that's fine. Okay, here's our mini map, but there's nothing in it. So how do I get stuff in it? Well, there's a lot of different ways. The most efficient way, in my opinion, is to put sprites in. This will let the game not lag as much. So realistically, what I do for my other game is I'll have a screenshot, or yeah, probably a screenshot of my map itself. I'll zoom out as much as I can and then just take a screenshot, and I will put that right here. Instead of the texture react, I'll have that as the background.
and then I will have a camera and then the player. This is a bit awkward because we're going to have more than player, but we'll still kind of do it. But keep in mind, the more things that are in this mini map, the more our game will slow down, essentially, right? And we're going to try to optimize that as much as we can, as much as I know how to, at least. So the first thing we want to do is we're going to create a scene for every sprite. So let's create a sprite. We're going to instantiate the barb house first. So let's do that. Let's make local. We'll pop that out, delete this, and make scene root. The reason I'm doing this is because this has an animation, so I can't just pop in the actual barrack. So we'll say barrack sprite. We'll pop back here. We'll say, actually, no, we'll put this in UI. We'll put it here, a new folder, mini map sprites. And then we'll save it here. So save. We'll save that, and then should be saving here. Yeah, there it is. Let's make another one. Let's 2D sprite, whatever. Instantiate scene. We'll do our unit. Where is it? We'll do a tree first. Actually, for tree, it's actually really easy because we have a tree already. This one's a solo tree. So we'll just save that. That'll be tree sprite. There we go. And the transform will be 1:1 instead of 2:2, so it'll look smaller inside the map, right? So we've actually scaled everything twice by like 0.5 but twice, so it'll be like 0.25 of the original size. So we can close that. We can close that. Go here. Last thing I'll do. You can do one for everything, but I'm just going to do for our units. So I'll show you how to do one of each type, kind of, and then you can kind of do the rest on your own. So we'll make scene roots. And this will be our unit. Let's do 0.5 of its original size. Let's say RTS sprite. Save that. Move that down though. We'll center it. Oh, I have to center everything actually. So let's close this. Go to our sprites. Let's open them all and center it all. So center that, and this is centered. Okay, nice. So now let's load everything in here. Let's delete all this. We'll have a function called update map. So we're going to call that. Let's create that function so we don't have a error. Update map. We'll pass for now. Okay, let's load everything that we just made. So let's see, variable barb house, variable unit, and variable tree equals preload. We're going to preload our thing that we just made. So here it is, tree sprite. And let's just copy this over. And here I can copy the unit. So Arthix sprite. And for the barb house, we'll say barrack house. Okay, so we've loaded everything. There's one more thing we're going to need, which is going to be our camera. So onReady camera equals camera. Pop up, please. Okay, it's not going to pop up. I'll just complete whatever. It should just be camera. Oh, variable camera. There we go. Okay, and in our update map, what are we going to do? Okay, let's actually do the camera first, because that's a bit easier. So let's create a process function. So I tried a few different ways for the camera. I thought the more efficient way would be to get the camera just do whatever the original camera does. But I had a few problems with that, as you might imagine, because we did a lot of tinkering with the camera. So there's a lot of things in our camera that change its zoom, its position, etc. Right? So instead of just doing the same thing in this camera, originally I just tried putting in the script and adjusting the size, but I got a headache from that. You can try to figure that out if you want. Instead, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get our camera. So I'm going to actually copy this over. I'm going to get the camera path. It's going to, again, it's just get tree, get root, get node, world, and camera 2D, right? So that's how we get our camera from our mini map, right? And once we get that camera, all we're going to do is say camera dot position. Hopefully I spelled that right. Equals camera
path dot position divided by 2. There we go. So we're gonna just divide it by 2 because this viewport is scaled by 0.5, right? And we're just gonna do the same thing for the zoom. So now I'll say zoom and then zoom. Let me just double check I spelled that right by pasting it. Okay, I did. And that is it. So now you probably won't be able to notice this. I'll get position on base null instance. Okay. Oh, camera. What's going on here? Camera dot position. Let's try one more. Oh, I think it's because, yeah, okay, that's why. Because the path is not right. Okay, there we go. Camera. Okay, there we go. So now whenever I zoom out, it should zoom out and zoom in, and if I move, it'll move. But you can't see it because there's no reference in our minimap, right? We haven't put any objects in there. So let's actually put something in there for now, just to see if it works. Let's put our tree. Just put a tree in there. Why not? There's our little tree, so you can see our tree. So if I move or zoom out, it'll zoom in and out, right? Awesome. So we know it works. Okay, let's delete that. And now update map is basically going to put everything that exists in our main world into this map, right? So how do we do that? Well, it's pretty easy actually. We just use for loop. So for I in, actually we have to load the path of the stuff that we want to get. So let me just copy paste all 3 things. So we have the path of our house, we have the path of our units, and we have the path for our trees. I'll give you a second to copy that over. Just keep in mind for the objects, we have tree and house. So what I'm actually gonna do for now, yeah, I'm just, for the sake of simplicity, I'm just gonna drag this out and create its own house. So let's say houses. Oh no, that already exists. Resources. There we go. Yeah, so now we can refer to our trees in the object panel. So we can go here, and the tree path is always going to be in the object. So now we can say for loop in house path dot get child count. So now we know how many houses we have, and now all I want to do is, so I've taken all the houses from our main world, right? So I go into here, I say, okay, we have 2 houses. Well, what do I want to do? Now I want to just create 2 houses inside of this report, right? I want to create them in here. So that's easy. We just say variable house equals barb house dot instantiate, and then we'll just add the child. So we add child house, and then is it after? Yeah, it doesn't matter actually. But then we have to set the position to the actual thing that we got, right? So we'll say house path dot get child I dot position. So we've created a sprite of this house, and we're going to set its position to each position that we have. So the reason why we're looping is it's so nice because we can basically loop through these houses. So we'll go to this one first, right? This is the first one, or technically index 0. So we're going to go to index 0 and say, okay, at index 0, we're going to create a house, right? And I'm going to say that house's position inside of our sub viewport is going to be equal to the house position of this house, right? And then because it's a minimap, we have to divide it by 2. Otherwise, the position technically isn't right. Okay, so now we have our house. We have 2 houses, and it works pretty accurately in the sense that it's in the right position, kind of, right? So if it goes off my screen, it's off my screen. It's not perfect, obviously, as you can tell. It might take a little playing around. The positions might not be perfectly right. For example, I think the camera, if we limit it, oh, it's already limited, perfect. It's current. Zoom, we don't have to change. It should be current. I think if you don't have current, it actually doesn't work properly. I think something weird happens. Yeah, it just doesn't work at all. So we have to have it current. Okay. Yeah, that's our house. So let's do that for our units and trees. So let's say tree path. Let's say here. Then units. We'll do this, and then unit. instantiate that unit, and then for the tree, we'll instantiate the tree. And this should work, I believe. We don't have to change the name of the house, even though it's weird. So now let's try that. Yeah, there we go. So there's our tree, there's our houses, and there's our unit. Now the question is, how do we get our unit to update? Well, the unit, let me actually double check something. Let me actually say we don't have to update the positioner for our unit. And I will tell you why. Because we're going to have to be updating the unit position inside the process function. So what we're going to have to do is we're just going to copy it over this unit path into our process function. We have access to it. You could put it outside, but I'm just going to copy paste it. I don't know, I'm lazy. And what we're going to do is we're going to say units total. So we're going to use the same logic, right? We're going to get the children, or we're going to get all the children inside of our units and update the position as we go, right? So I actually want you to pause the video and figure this out. So we've accessed the units inside of by getting the unit path and getting the child count, right? We can access each one by doing that. Now, how do we update the position in the process function, right? It's almost the same logic. So I want you to try to figure that out, and I will do it in a second. So hopefully you've paused and unpaused, and let's keep going. So let's actually copy this guy. So we're going to for loop I. Total units will be, here we go, get node units. So we're going to get this, we're going to put all our units inside this guy, right? So actually what we have to do is we're also going to put that in here. So we're going to get node units. We're going to get this node and put the units in there. The reason why we want to do this is because this shouldn't error, but hopefully it doesn't. Okay. Our unit's not even there. But if we go into our world, remote, we should be able to see, yeah, here's our unit. Now here's everything else, right? And it's not organized at all. You can organize it if you want, but the problem with accessing the units is that we wouldn't be able to access them unless it's in its own node, right? Or if it's organized on its own. So that's why we put it into that 2D node. So now we can access all the units that we have in this scene to mirror the other ones in the other scene, right? So now what we can do is just say units total dot get child I. So we want to get the first child. So basically what we want to do, let's see if I can explain this. Let's actually take this and pass. Let's see if, okay, the unit's not there. Why isn't it there actually? Let's see. Ordering, let's turn that off. Oh, there we go. Nope, it's still not there. Oh, it's because of the position. Okay, it's at 0, 0 right now, but we'll update in a second, so don't worry about it. It is there. So let me explain what we want to do. So we want to take this node, this sprite or node, it's still a node, right? And we want to mirror the position of this node, right? So we want to take this node and just say, set the position equal to this position, right? So I want you to try to figure out how can we do that using what we have. So we have the units path and we have the units total by saying this, right? Units total dot get child. So that's how we get the first child, or technically index 0, right? So we got that first child. Now we say, okay, we want the units path dot get child I position. Yeah, that's right. And we're going to divide it by 2. What's going on? Let's reload it. No, what is going on? Oh, that's why. We want to set the position equal to the position. There we go. So let's reload. And now here's our child. So now if I move it, it'll move perfectly, right? And I don't have to update the position inside it here when I create it because it's already being updated in the process function, right? So now whenever I create something, it won't work. Why? Because it doesn't update. So we have to update it. Okay, so how do we update? If you remember from last video, we can just call the ready function. Ready function will allow us to not reload the scene, but it'll allow us to kind of load the scene in a sense, right? So what we can do is say, go to our spawn unit, and every time I spawn a unit, let me pull out my reference. Okay, here we go. I'm just going to copy paste this line and I'll let you do that as well. So this is actually quite long, so I'll actually pause for a second. So to get the minimap path, we have to go to world, UI, minimap, subport, container, and then the viewport subport. I didn't name them properly, so you can actually name them and do better. But that's how we do that. And then we just call the ready function, right? So that's how we essentially reload the scene in a sense. However, we'll test it and see what happens. You can tell me what's wrong. Okay, what's going on here? I must have typed some things wrong. Okay, let's see if I got the path right. Minimap is capitalized. It's not minimap here. So let's do that. Minimap, let's reload. Let's create. Okay, there we go. So it does update. So here it is. Here's our guy. However, no, so the problem isn't with this. Now the problem is with the tree. So if we look at our tree, we can chop it down, but it stays in our minimap. So how can we get rid of it properly? Well, what we can do is we can do that or change that in our minimap. So in our minimap script, what we'll do is we're just going to for loop through all our children that is past the unit. Let's say for loop get child count plus 3 past the unit and delete it. So we'll just say get child. And so yeah, to do that, we just say get child plus 3 dot q3. So this way we're deleting everything. You know what, actually, let me show you why we need to do this without. Okay, so when I click yes a few times, it's reloaded the scene. It's technically, right? We've called ready quite a few times. Whoops, let me. And now if I go into my remote, we'll ignore the units, but even the units is a problem. Now, if I look at the barracks, there's so many of them. Why? Because I've loaded in so many barracks, right? So this is kind of a problem. So we want to make sure we delete all the things in there before we do anything. We also will have to delete the units. So we'll say for loop in get node units dot get child count, and then we'll just delete all the children in there. So now, what's going on? I'm trying to call a function. Let me see. What did I do wrong? Oh, -3. That's why. Get child plus 3. Yeah, that's right. Oh, I also got it. I gotta stop doing that. Oh no, that one's right. Okay, let's reload. Okay, so now whenever I move and I create a new thing, we've deleted get child. That's why. Okay, hold on. Let me fix that. Get units inside the unit, or get the nodes inside the unit and delete those. Oh my god, what have I done? Okay. That makes sense. Okay, let's actually get rid of this line for now, and I'll look into that later. Okay, so now whenever I create the more units, if I go into my remote, I can see there's only 2 barracks and 1 tree, right? Because we have 2 barracks and 1 tree. So now let's go delete our tree. And I'll update in a second. So as you can see, the tree remains. However, if I update the map by clicking yes and spawning a new unit, the tree disappears. So that's how we update the map, essentially, by making sure there's no extra things. What we can do is we can actually just say, we can take this, and you can make it global, but we can also just go into our camera and say in our draw function, anytime I draw, I'll call this function, or these 2 lines, right? And just update our map. So now if I chop down our tree, let's actually spawn a unit so it's faster. We'll chop down our tree, zoom in so I can see it. There's our tree. And if I draw, it'll update. So you can kind of update the minimap whenever you want, but that's how you do it. I recommend you figure out how to delete the units without getting an error. It's actually pretty easy. I'll explain it, but I'm not going to do it because we're 25 minutes in and I want to finish the video. But basically, can I copy paste it? No, I deleted it by accident. You know what? Let's actually do it. It'll take a few minutes, but let's do it anyways. Okay, get child count. We'll say get node
units, and then get your node units in Q3, all of them. And then what we can do here is say, let me find out where the error is actually. Yes. Wait, what's the problem? Okay, I don't know where my error went actually. I think it errored before, but okay, if you do get the error I got before, what you should do is see if it has that child. So I'll do it anyways. So we can say inside of our for loop, we'll say if units total dot has node. Ooh, has node might not work. Has child, is that anything? Let's see. I don't know if has child is actually a command, but you would use has node or has child to do that. Let's see if this works. It does not. Okay, you would have to use has node, but I don't know how you'd do that. So you'd have to figure that out. But that's how you would kind of figure that out. But that's it. Okay, this video is way too long. I'm just rambling on. But yeah, hopefully you've learned how to make a minimap using our subports. It's not too complicated, but the actual subport is not very hard. But the getting the positions right and kind of mirroring our world is a bit difficult in that sense. If you want to, yeah, no, it's a bit complicated and it takes a bit of tinkering. I wouldn't say it's complicated or hard. It's just it takes a bit of practice, I guess. But yeah, that's it. Hopefully you learned how to do that. Hopefully you learned a lot of stuff. I'm not too sure how long this series will last. It doesn't seem like there's too much interest in it. I do plan on doing a in-depth inventory series soon after this series, and then right after that following, I will be doing a 3D series, which will be fun because there aren't many 3D series out there on YouTube, so I want to create tutorials for that. I think 3D is cool and it's really hard, but it's really hard to do. Not hard, but it's quite different from 2D world or realm, and I think 3D is quite interesting. So we'll probably dip our toe into that a little bit. But aside from that, hopefully you guys like the video. I will see you guys next time. Like, subscribe, follow me on wherever. Follow me on Twitch. I don't know. Join my Discord. I really love when you guys talk in my Discord. It definitely motivates me to keep making videos. You can also go pledge to my Patreon if you want. Yeah, I don't know. My brain is completely pooped out. It's been 30 minutes of me talking. So I will see you guys next time. Goodbye. All right, welcome back, everyone. As you can see in today's video, I don't know if you can see, but we are going to be working on a randomizing tree generator. So let me reload the game just to show you that it does reload. Sorry. So I'm going to reload it, and boom, the trees have a different position. We can also add. I'll show that in a second, but yeah. So we will have a random generator basically for the trees, and it is placed tile size. So it's placed every 32 tiles. It's hard to see, but okay, here, right here, you can see that the tiles are set. You can't really count it, but it's 32 pixels away from each other, and it's on the exact same line, right? So this is grid placement. We are also going to be able to. Ooh, why is it not working? That's actually very strange. Oh, there we go. Yeah, so we're going to be able to add buildings. There's no select building and then put it. It's just we're going to be able to left click and put it. If you want to make a select system, I have other videos about that. I might add that into this series, but you should know everything. This will allow you to know everything you need to kind of create that select system and add it or whatever you want, really. So yeah, that's it. So now, there we go. We can add another one there. It's set so that it won't add anything next to another obstacle or another tree or anything around it, really. So if there's a tree or a building around it, you can't add it. Up to 32 pixels, I think. But we'll play around with it, and I will show you how to do that. And let's get right into it. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to be doing everything in our objects node. Originally, I actually thought of doing this in tilemap, and there's actually a pretty good video of GD script they did in 2017, which was 5 years ago, almost 6 years because it's almost 2023 now. Yeah, so it's almost 6 years ago that they made that video. It's not bad, but it's very outdated, especially with the new tilemap. This code that I will do does work to an extent, even if you do decide to do it in tilemap. In fact, tilemap might even be better, especially if you want to do kind of an optimized system where you use your keyboard to place buildings and it's kind of placed and then you click like right click and then it'll go to the right, etc. Right? So that kind of movement, that might even be better. But in this case, we're just going to be doing this in a regular node. So let's create a script for it. It'll just be in the main world. That's okay. And then let's delete the process function. We don't need that. And let's maybe pull out my reference so I know what I'm doing. I know what I'm doing, but it definitely helps having my reference in there. Okay. So the first thing we're going to have is two onReady functions, onReady variables, sorry. The first one is going to be house, and the second one is just going to be tree, and these are just going to be our trees. We're not going to have a new, we're going to say preload, and we're going to preload our coin house, except that's going to be for the house, not the tree. So let's preload the tree now. So it should be in our world objects tree. There it is. And there we go. So we have our tree and house loaded. Next thing we're going to have is our tile size. And so this is going to be up to you. It's going to be dependent on how many like pixels you want the tile to be, basically. We'll just do 16, just like my reference. I'll add that in later, but we're also going to have grid size, so variable grid size equals vector 2, 160 by 160, which is actually quite big. It's going to be, I'll show you guys in a minute, but it's going to be quite big. 160 by 160 is quite a big, actually. And then we'll have the actual grid, which is going to be an array. There we go. Okay, so the first thing we have to do is we have to fill our grid. So what we want to do is take our grid and fill it with empty things, right? We'll fill it with null, basically. I'll show you how to do that in a second, but we want to fill it with the grid size and then also fill it with something. So that way we have something to fill it in with, right? Because if you don't know how array works, you cannot add to an array. You can only change stuff inside of an array. So that's why we have to append it in the beginning, because we cannot change the size of the array later on unless we like reload the scene, kind of, which is what we do in the units. But in this case, it won't matter too much. So we'll for loop x in range of our grid size dot x, I believe. Yeah. And then we're also just going to go down a line and then say for loop in range of our grid size, I can't type, size dot y. And then that is it. In the first line, we're just going to say grid append. We're going to append an empty array. And then in this one, this is where we're going to append, I didn't spell grid right, append null. But in here, we're going to reference the x-axis. So here's where we're going to basically create a 2D array, right? So we're going to imagine my camera here. We're going to have the, let's see if I can follow my finger. So the x-axis, we're going to go downwards and create a bunch of arrays this way, right? So we're going to create a bunch of x-axis grids or arrays that are empty, right? So that's what this line is doing. And then inside of those lines, essentially we'll have a bunch of lines here. Inside of those, we'll append a bunch of null instance objects, basically, right? We're going to append null to it, right? And that's how we create a 2D array, kind of the same size as our camera. Not the same size, but it's going to be the, you know what I mean? I can't talk. I don't know. Hopefully you understand what I'm talking about, but that's how we create the empty array for our grid. And this is going to allow us, I'll explain why we do this. This is actually very useful in general. We don't actually have to do this to fill our map with trees, but this is useful for a reason, which we will get later on. Okay, so realistically, what we can do is all we can do is say new tree, variable tree equals tree dot instantiate. I'm not going to have a packed scene or anything in there. And then we're just going to say add child new tree, right? And this should work. So if I play, it should work, and it's hard to see probably, but in the top left corner, there's a tree. It's actually on our mini map and on our map. If we go here, we can see that it's been added, right? So that's how we add a object. But we want to create a bunch of trees, but also we want to add this. Let's actually get the position first. So we want to get a bunch of random positions and put the trees in there, right? So the first thing we can do is just, let's create another array, an empty array called positions, and this will hold the positions of our trees, right? And then in there, we're just going to say, we'll do I. We'll say for loop I in range of, we'll do 5, yeah, we'll do 50 for now. This is going to be the amount of trees, so we'll have 50 trees being spawned. And then inside that, we'll have x coordinates, we'll say variable y coordinates, and then variable grid position, which is actually going to be just the vector 2 of our x coordinates and our y coordinates. And then right after that, we're just going to say, if not grid position in positions, then we'll just add it by doing should be positions dot append, and then we will append that grid position. So it's pretty simple. We're just going to create an x coordinate, a y coordinate. We're going to set that position right by putting vector 2, and then we're going to check if that position already exists. If it does, or if it doesn't, then we'll add it. If it does, it's not going to re-roll. It's just going to go to the next loop, right? So it's not. It might not actually add exactly 50 trees. It might skip a few, but that's okay. We're not going to overcomplicate it. We might actually use the same logic later on, and it'll be more complicated, and you can copy that over to here if you want. But for the x coordinate and y coordinate, this is super easy. We'll just do a randi function, and then we'll say percent in up to grid size dot x, and we'll just copy this over and say up to dot y. It should be the same because our x and y it's a square, but if you do change one, it'll just it'll adjust. So I do want to just do dot y, and that should be it. So now we have a bunch of positions. In fact, I can just print positions here, and if I play, it'll print me a bunch of random positions, right? That are between 160 and 0 or 1. No, it should be 0, between 0 and 160. So that's our array. And then in our adding the tree, we're going to create a for loop for that as well. So we'll just say for loop position in positions. So position we just made, and positions is the array that we have. And then we'll make sure that is in there because we want to do all that in there. And this will create 50 trees, hopefully. Now we want to adjust the position of each tree up to the positions that are in our positions, right? So the position is the current position we have. So let's say this is the array that we have. We want to adjust the new tree dot. Let's actually use set position. Set position, which is a function. If you want to check, well, you can't. I don't know if this is actually I don't know if this is common knowledge, by the way, but if you do want to check the documents of something, all you have to do is control and left click, and that'll bring you to the this is a patch scene, so it'll bring me to the reference of it. Maybe I'll make a video of tips of Godot things, because I think these are things that you don't know until you actually just play around with Godot. Anyways, so now we're going to set the position to the position that we have. Let's do, we'll just do position. And that is it, technically. However, we also want to tell our grid that there is now something inside this grid, right? So what we can do is we can say grid side, no, is that right? No, sorry, position.x, and then in that position.y equals, we'll give an empty string for now. Sure, we can say new tree, and that should be it. And now if I play, it'll give me a bunch of trees. However, it's going to be in a small section that'll be 160 by 160. Now, how do we change this so that it essentially doubles the grid size. Well, what we can do is we can actually, either you can double this by saying 160, 160, whatever, or we can take our tile size and just multiply it here. And there is kind of a reason why I do it here and not in our grid size. I will show you why later. But another thing we're going to do, okay, so that's the tile size. Let's actually reload so that you see it works. And so now if I zoom out, there's a bunch of trees everywhere. There's only 50 trees total, so it doesn't look like too many. But if I do like 500, reload, there's a bunch more trees. Awesome. Let's actually put it back to 50 so that there's not too many. However, in the position of our grid, or the actual position of our grid, or I can't talk, the actual thing of our grid in our array, we want to set it to something else. And we're just going to use a numerator, just like the video for GGScript. I'll actually link it down below if you guys want to check it out. It is useful, but it's just super outdated. And if you don't know what a numerator is, it just basically, let me write this out. I say obstacles. We'll say obstacle. We'll have collectible. I don't know if that's right, but whatever. And then we'll have resource. So what this is it just gives a name for a reference of number. So this is 0, 1, 2. And what we can do is we can say, let's say the tree is an obstacle. So we can just set that to an obstacle. And this basically sets this position, X and Y, to 0, because obstacle in this enumerator is 0, right? So in fact, if I go here and print, oops, I don't want that capitalized, print, make sure there's no other prints. Okay, play, it'll print 0, right? Because obstacle is just 0. All right, so now we have a bunch of these grids set up as obstacle, right? And that's just the tree. So we've got the trees set up. They are in grid setup technically, right? So they are in sets of grids. So the reason why they're always going to be like that is because in the tile size, we multiply it by 16, right? So that's one of the reasons why it's separated, because we want to set the positions as in the tile size. So this kind of emulates a tile, a grid placement essentially, right? It's not exactly a grid placement, but it emulates it. Okay, so now let's work into the input. So we'll just do a quick if event.is action press left click, that's fine. You can do a bunch of things where you'll see if a building is selected, and if that building is selected and you have it and you have the resources, whatever. You can do all that as well. Just for the sake of this video and the grid placement and the logic of the grid placement, we're not going to do that. I have a video that's related to selecting. If you want you know what? If you guys want a selected selection system in this series, let me know down in the comments below, and I might add that. I do want to bring this series to an end soon because it doesn't seem too popular, and I do want to move on to 3D. I think that will be more interesting, and I also do want to do the inventory thing, which I've been holding off for a really long time. So yeah, let's continue. Let's make a bunch of lines here. Let's just pass so we don't have an error. We'll also end the game. Okay, so this is the fun part. We're going to have a bunch of variables. The first one is going to be our let's do mouse position. And this is easy. Just get global mouse position, right? So we now have a mouse position. Now our goal is, okay, so here, our goal is to basically, this isn't a word, but gridify our mouse position. So once I click on the position of our mouse, there's a, here, let's print it out. Print mouse position. Save. Once I click it, I want to take this position and basically find the closest multiple of the number 16 or tile size, right? So how do we, there are a bunch of, technically there is no math thing that does this, but the closest one I can think of was clamped. I originally thought clamped would work, and what clamp does is it clamps a number between two numbers. So let's say I put like 16 and 2 and 4, and because 16 is closer to 4, it would clamp it to 4. I think it's actually clamp. Yeah, clamp. So it'll clamp the number 16 to 4. So if I printed this out, just for the sake of math, I guess, we'll print this out and it should just give me 4. So I click something and it'll just give me 4, right? If I gave like 1, should just give me 2, right? So this is kind of what we want to do, but it's not exactly what we want to do, because we don't want to clamp the number. We want to get the closest position of what the number is, kind of, right? So what we'll do
It's actually very simple, but we'll go through it step by step. So we're going to have a variable called multi-x. We're going to have a variable called num-x, and that's it. We'll do the y later. So for the multi-x, what we're going to do is we're going to round our position first, because when I click something, it's actually in a float. In this case, it wasn't, but if you do know anything about the get global mouse position, I'm pretty sure if I actually go here, it's a vector 2, and each position, okay, it doesn't say, but it's actually a float sometimes, and it'll error if you don't round it. So we're going to round it. So we're going to say round the mouse position, please. And we're only going to round the x position because we don't care about the y position. So we're going to get the x position and round it. And then we're going to divide it by the tile size. And then we're going to take all this and we're going to convert it to an integer, because rounding it doesn't actually bring it to an integer. It rounds it to the closest float of a 0. So if we had like 52.5, it would round it to 52.0 actually. I don't know why, but yeah, that's how it works. We now converted it to an integer, and so this is what we want. So let's let me actually bring out a calculator to kind of show what I'm doing. Okay, so let's say our position x was 33, right? I want to take 33, divide it by 16, and what I get is 2 point something, and I want to round it to 2. So now I have the number 2. So what do I do with the number 2? Well, I actually just take 2. Let's erase it, or not. Yeah, here we go. We take the number 2 and we multiply it by the tile size, which is 16. And that'll round us to the closest number that's like to the 16th, the multiple. All right, so that's what we do. So we just take our multiple x and multiply it by tile size. Let me just make sure that's right. Yeah, that's right. Let me make sure I wrote everything right. Okay, no errors. And then we just copy paste this, and we just do this for our y position. So we just change all this to y. Yeah, and that's it. And then what all we're going to do is going to say variable position equals vector 2. We're going to have multi-x and multi-y. And then we'll actually say new position. And then we'll have another variable called a round. I'll explain what that is in a second. Actually, no, ignore that. That didn't happen. But yeah, so let's actually, yeah, that's it. Now what we can do is we can just copy this over and use that logic. So we're going to copy our house instead. So we're going to instantiate a house. I'm going to say new tree, or new house, sorry. We'll say, and add that new house. And then what we're going to do, instead of our position x and position y, we just have multi-x and multi-y. There we go. And then for set position, we will just have position, new position. Yeah, that's it. However, no, that's it. Okay, so let's play. If I click, it will now round it to the closest 16th and add it. So if I zoomed in here just to see it, you can see that the positions are always 16 pixels away from each other, right? You can always change it to 32 if you want, but that's fine. Now the question is, how do I add a house so that it's, or how can I check if this house? So okay, let me zoom in. If I add a house here, I want to check if there's a house, or if I want to add a house here, let's say, sure, that position. How do I check if there's one next to it, right, or close to it, right? That's pretty not too difficult. So let's get into that. So we'll actually make the if statement first. So what we can do is say if grid we'll actually just copy this guy over. Say if grid.x plus 1 has something. We'll say we'll say not equal null. So if it's empty, then what we can say is around equals false, and then we'll have to actually make that. We'll say around equals false, and I actually meant true here. So if there is something around it, then, or if there is not null, meaning there is something there, then we'll say it's true. And then what we can do is say if around equals false, then we'll add it, right? And yeah, that's it. So what we can do, another thing we have to actually do,
No, we'll get into that later. However, this will only check if it's something to the right by 1 pixel, which doesn't do much for us. So what we can do, this isn't actually optimal, but what we can do is just for loop I in range of, let's say, what did I do? Oh, I did tile size. That's pretty interesting that I did that. You can change this number up, but I'll just do tile size for now. And then we'll take this all here. And then instead of 1, we can do I. And now you might imagine, okay, this allows us to check if there's anything up to 16 pixels to the right, right? So now if I add something, I keep going to the right, it doesn't allow me to, let me check. Ooh, to the left, sorry, I think. Where am I? Yeah, I think it's to the left. Okay, there we go. Yeah, it's to the left. But now what I can do is I can just do this for all directions. So I can say, or if grid, copy this over, except we will do minus, right? And then what we can do is just copy this over one more time, both of them. And then we'll say or here, but then we'll do for the y-axis, so we'll say plus I. And then for here, we'll do minus I. And this allows us to check all 4 directions. This actually does not allow for all 8 directions. If you want to do that, you can, but now you know how. And yeah, so this allows us to check all 4 directions, up, down, left, right. But now if I try to, so if I go here, if I try to add something to the right, it will not allow me to up till 16 pixels, right? I think I should just be able to allow it or get it like to the left or right, like upwards. But if it's right below it or left of it or up of it, it will not allow you to add that up to 16 pixels. You can change this. You can do like 50 pixels if you want. We'll just keep it as tile size though, which is 16. Okay. Next thing is we want to actually check if the grid. So now this is why we have the grid, because here, let me go into remote and show you what is happening. So if we go to objects, we have a bunch of trees. If I click here, it will add it here. We might want to add it somewhere else, but that's okay for now. Let's add one more. And if I click in the same position, ooh, it doesn't. Let's actually add one more line of code anyways. And this actually does help us. So we'll check for if the grid, here we go. Okay, let's just copy this over. Grid multi-x dot multi-y. If it has something, or if it is null, then we'll do all this. Then we'll add it. And that's it. So that allows us to also check the exact position that the multi-x and multi-y is on. And that is it. Yeah. I think that is it, actually. I think we've finished everything. So we can now add a bunch of houses that are somewhat far away from each other. Obviously, it doesn't work for all 8 directions, but you can do that on your own. However, if I try to add something right next to it, it doesn't really work, right? Because you can have like a notification maybe that says, yeah, you can have a notification that says that we'll print something. So already has building, here it. So let's save this. And now if I ever try to click something around it, it already prints that. You can have something in game that prints that if you want. That's up to you. But yeah, I'm not going to do that. That is it for today's episode. I hope you guys enjoyed. Have you learned something about arrays? We played a lot with arrays today. We did two arrays, positions and grid, which is cool. We use grid size to kind of emulate a fake grid, as well as tile size. You could. Now I'm not getting into the specifics of it, but yeah, I hope you guys learned something. This video was relatively easy, I would say. I think one thing I'm going to do actually is I'm going to say get node, and we will add this into our resources node instead. There we go. Boom, boom, boom. Yeah, there we go. So the grid, so it'll add our node into here, but it'll still be in our grid. You can change this. Actually, I didn't even realize you can change this to resource instead of obstacle. But yeah.
Okay, and that's the end of the course. I hope you guys really enjoyed this course. It was a lot of fun doing it together with you guys. And if you guys would like to see more content like this, definitely check out my channel. It'll be in the link down below. And if you guys want, I have a Discord that you can definitely check out and join. If you need any help with this course, I will always be around to try and help. I have a bunch of other series as well on my channel, so definitely go check those out, such as an RPG series, a farming series where we kind of go through how to kind of recreate some different variety of farming games. And I believe I also have one that's kind of like an action survivor.io game, and so that one's kind of interesting. And recently, or soon, I will be releasing a 3D RPG series that will be a lot of fun, so definitely go subscribe to my channel and check that out. And if you guys like Godot, definitely use it for all your future projects. It's a lot of fun and it's really simple, and Godot is always growing, and it's really cool to see that. So definitely check that out, and I will see you guys around, hopefully. Bye bye.